Hello, welcome back to the only show that breaks down, cracks up, skews, and reviews each week's DC Comics. I'm joining the Scarface / Baby Doll family, Eric Shea.
Yeah, and I'm Jim Warner.
And this is the Weird Science DC Comics Podcast, episode number 575.
You're going to join the Baby Doll families because you have a lot of wood. Hey, everybody. Those are the jokes. It's episode 575. It's an anniversary episode here, I would not think, but here we are. And as most people on the regular feed will be maybe listening to this, it will be the Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl will be going on probably by the point that this goes up, and people will then enjoy the Eagles' 27-24 victory, Eric, is what I'm going with right now. Every time I say it, I change, but I am hoping that the Eagles can get back a revenge game against the Chiefs, though I am worried. But
this time it's personal.
It is. It always is, especially with you and your wood. Here we are. I have a feeling that me and Eric are going to agree on everything tonight.
Oh, yeah?
I'm in such a great mood. I'm not even going to tell you that I don't feel good because you end up pish-poshing it, making me feel worse. I end up thinking it's a reach out, a cry for help that gets ignored all the time. Somebody does, maybe. Somebody's out there listening, but the problem is they're like in France and like, if only I could get to Jim and make him feel better. Though I don't think they could. I think it's just age and I don't know, anger and misery.
I think it's just your way of starting small talk, but for some reason it's the same thing every time.
Well, because you never engage, so it's always new to me. It's like not watching a show. I watch it's just reruns. It is. Speaking of which, one of the best dancers in all of TV history. I'll tell you that. Him and Danny Terrio, right? Danny Terrio, you know him, Eric. Here we are. We have 575. We have a plethora of books. And as everybody knows, a plethora does mean six, coming from the Greek word pleth, which means six. Eric,
don't fact check, but just go with it.
No, don't fact check anything on this episode, especially Eric's scores, right? There you go. I did get a word out because we did put 2 episodes ago. Last episode, if you were wondering where it was, we didn't take a week off. We don't do that. That was a Patreon-only show. It was an annuals week. We ended up talking over 3 hours, actually, about the 3 books that we talked about, and that is a Patreon-only show. But since then, we did have the show before that on the YouTube, and people did mention and even message me on Twitter and things about the songs and asking, which songs are yours and which songs are Eric's and things like that. Basically, I'm the bookends anymore on this, and everything else is yours. So I just don't want to take credit for your songs going through here. Plus, if you hear a song and it does not have, like, if you hear sick and then the next rhyme isn't, then it's not mine. Because I write the dirty songs, is what I do. But here we are. And as I said, we have 6 books, so we won't delay too long at this intro as I just blather on about nothing. But before we go on to the books, let us get the bookkeeping done. And part of that is to let everybody know that if you are looking for, say, Batman Offworld number 6, it came out this week, was a surprise to me and Eric. So at the bit of this, we decided, not just because we thought it didn't deserve to be on the podcast or whatever, but we had already decided that we weren't going to record Friday. And with the idea of the Batman Offworld, we probably would have had to. So I suggested to you, we can either have it as a Patreon-only thing along with the Spotlight, or we could do an exclusive deal on YouTube. And I decided we were going to do the YouTube thing. So if you want to hear us talk about Batman Offworld number 6 in a review that is more of our type of review, not a, hey, let's get it done quick and skip things that they do on YouTube. Not throwing shade at YouTube, but it is. I'm telling you, people sit there and like, I don't know what you and Eric are doing. Like for the reviews on YouTube, they should be like 8 minutes long. I'm like, right now we're almost to that. We haven't even said anything. It just doesn't happen. So I figure, let's just do it our way, Eric. It's worked so well over the years, but it is a longer review. It's like 40 some minutes or something like that because we, deep dive into things. We talk about stuff and maybe I bring up food stuff.
Of course you do.
The Teeny Howard of podcasting, but you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Weird Science Comics. Very easy to find. There's also a link in the show notes. You can go and watch that review. And then also each Friday night, when we have an Absolute book, we talk about the Absolute stuff on YouTube as a live stream. And more people are getting involved. It's pretty cool. And that is at 7:15 Eastern Standard Time, PM. every time there is a book. Next week, you'll have The Absolute Batman. So we'll be talking about
Absolute
that next
Batman
week. And we'd love
5.
to have people, join in and have some fun. We're getting used to the whole thing, too. We're kind of, new to the game there of live streaming talking. But I think that this past episode, last night when we did it, I kind of just let's just talk about what people are talking about and things like that. We were trying to make it like, okay, we're doing a podcast, but we'll be here. I kind of like combining the deal. But also, that's not all there. Don't act yet. Because you also might be wondering, where are those 2 great books, those books everybody's talking about, Birds of Prey number 18. And you do like Poison Ivy number 30, and actually convinced me to like it a little more than I did. Don't like Janet anymore. Janet is completely
Janet's just getting
nuts.
Interesting.
That's the funny thing. She's getting interesting because she's doing something. But at this point, she's done nothing. So I don't want her to do anything except skedaddle. Out of the... Yeah. That's how I say where eventually you'll ask me how I feel. But yeah, Birds of Prey number 18. I don't know what that means. Well, better late than never, Eric. You'll eventually say, how are you? I'm really worried about you.
I will never do that.
I told you, eventually something's going to happen with me that I could come on and it'll be terrible. It'll be like I have a week to live, but I'll be so happy to just tell you that it legit, I don't feel good because I'm dying. And then you'll have to suck it up and you'll have to be nice.
This is the longest disease anybody's ever had.
Yeah, it's a disease called life. It's what it is. I'm telling you, it's eating me away.
Just get on with it already.
It's eating me away. It's like, I did hear at one point, I was worried that you would have like a flesh-eating bacteria, and then the doctor would tell you, you have 4 years to live here. You're a fatty, is what I'm saying.
That's true.
That's a joke, but more jokes. But yeah, we talked about On the Spot, like 2 books picked by the badasses of the Get Fresh crew. Poison Ivy number 30 and Birds of Prey number 18. So if you want to listen to that and listen to the Spotlight episode that we do each and every week, Thursday night, go to the Patreon, patreon.com/Weird Science. And I know that times are tough. Eggs are like $80 a dozen. Oh, yeah. So if you do go over and you're worried, well, I don't want to put my money down before I see if there's any quality, you can end up going a 7-day free trial, right? Yeah, just don't eat eggs and then go on the Patreon. But it is 7-day free trial. You can sign up and just check things out before you put your hard-earned money down. But with all of that, Eric, this all leads to one of your favorite times of the podcast. It's to salute the badasses of the Get Fresh crew.
Boom, boom.
It is the... I heard myself. When I really yell, I can hear... Eric, it's going to be quite a show. Quite a ride we're preparing for. Here's the badass roll call. They messed up the order, I think. It looks weird. Maybe not. I might have fixed that. Andrew in Belfast. He's a mixer. He is. Don't mention it. D-Man 3001. David Fink. Jack Halsey. Talked to Jack a bunch of times and saw that he gave a shout out. I did a NFL podcast this week and he enjoyed it, Eric. Nick Rose. Trevitt. I did pick the Eagles on that as well. Different score, though. Tom Johnson. Dan Smith. Yeah. JLG, Big Z, The Mark Claire Show, The Annihilator, Ted Probst, I Love Punchline, Stork wants a Swamp Thing plug. I'll tell Stork. Stork, every time you ask Eric for something, he's not going to respond. He thinks you're talking shit.
Oh,
Stork's probably like, here I am.
Yeah, I know.
Michael S.
Jim
Matt Razor, Dr. Matt, Niels T-Ward, Stephen Baum, Jason Colby, Sue42 to you and me, Mike G. And Jason, you should hear that shit talk. That guy gets holy moly. Mike G. Ken Alec, he doesn't. Comic Boom Rocky, Weird Walter, the mascot with the ascot, Mark Jager. That's a pretty good one, wasn't it?
It is pretty good. Now I need him with an ascot. That's all I'm thinking about.
I got halfway through. I'm like, where am I going with this now? The ascot. Oh, Eric, I'm cracking myself up. Two Wolf Marv, Luke Hollywood, Simon, Luis, Marriage, Swanee, Josh Ramillion. I'm tired. Her. Batman Beyond Mark. Too many badasses. What's going on? This stuff. Brandon Beamer, Murray, Brandon.
What the hell is happening right now?
He's up in, I don't know. I didn't take my medicine. Maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, but the medicine usually makes it worse.
Well, no, then I get real happy. It's not Zoloft. It's like the opposite. Olaf. You have Brandon. He is up there a little bit of shout out to Brandon. His Bills did not make it to the Super Bowl, but it would have been so awesome if it was Bills Eagles. That would have been great, seeing that Denim Mafia cry afterwards. But unfortunately, they lost. He ended up sending me a picture outside of his office And it really does look like the wall in, what's it called? The Game of Thrones. It's just this ice wall. And he's like, past that is Canada. That's what he told me. And he's like, he got depressed.
They put
That's
up
what
the
he
ice
sees.
wall.
You should see this thing. It's crazy. And Double A Ron doxing his ass in Minnesota. And all-time greats, Rob Lewis and Reginald Drinkwater. Reggie. There you go. There you go, Eric. Get the song off because we have things to do. Things to do. I don't know what happened. I was really miserable when we started, but somehow you talking to me lightened up my day.
No, I didn't do anything. You talking to yourself lightened up your day.
It's the old song, You Light Up My Life. I believe that might have been Debbie Boone who sang that, Eric. Somebody can fact check that because I think that is right. But yeah, all old trivia. That just shows my age. And yes, indeed, I'm 79, dude. But here we are. We have 6 books, plethora. We have some big books. We have the end of Zdarsky's run on Batman. Does anybody care? I mean, I know they might care that it's ending, but I heard nothing at all. And in fact, they ended up having some numbers out there, and Batman's like 35th, which that's bad,
as it should be at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. And when I was talking to some people about that today, about the idea of, well, what would they need to do to get people back on board?
Tell a good story.
You know what? Hush 2 might be a thing to do it. You got to do something that is older that you can get people to say, okay, I'll check that out. Hopefully it's nostalgia. Great. And then what happens then in September when we get a new number 1? You got to be careful. You can't just fuck around and do the shit they've been doing recently. They got to go with this play of,
you talking about,
let's
Jim?
make
they're
it
all
classic. And they're all in. I don't know what they're all in. I've had a crap. But yeah, we have some other stuff too, right? We got all the books this week. We have some
Batman, Batgirl, Two-Face.
It's a weird week.
Justice League, The Atom Project, JSA, and Shazam, the penultimate issue.
Yeah, Shazam, the penultimate issue, giving every John Kent fan what they always wanted, Eric. So
I'm still waiting for that book to give Shazam fans what they want.
Waiting for that book to give anybody what they want. But we'll get into that. Right. Yeah, really, that is true. But we'll get into that right about now.
Force and pain, no words to speak, so the silence remains. Father's shadow, mother's blade, trained for battle, a soul betrayed. The body speaks the language of war. No need for words, she knows what's in store. Seeing every move, seeing every sin. In the dark, this is how she begins. She speaks no evil, what she can see it, hear it. She'll make those who abuse it know it, fear it. A ghost in the shadows, rising with speed. She's more than a weapon, she's more than she was born to be. Trained for death, but she won't cross the line. A father's hate can blind her mind. Cassandra's choice, her will is free. Not a tool for rage, but a force to be. Silent fists, justice in her eyes. She won't bow down, she won't compromise. A warrior's heart beats fierce and true. In the dark, she'll see the mission through. She's a cane, but that's not her crutch. Silent, deadly, but she won't lose touch. She sees the evil, hears the lies. No more blood, no more cries. what she can see and hear it. She'll make those who abuse it know it, fear it. A ghost in the shadows, rising with speed. She's more than a weapon. She's more than she was born to be.
Oh, yes, and here we are. And of course, Eric, that song is obviously about the CEO, Rowan Bickmo, from from the Batman book. I did like a couple parts. I know that you smiled to yourself of the wordplay of Kane and then Crutch. I know that's where you got it, but I also like the part that you ended up going a little sus, where she's silent and deadly like a fart. But also the idea, too, Eric, that it made me laugh, because one of my biggest problems, and it's not a crazy problem, but I hate the way that Tate Brummel is just pushing this. I'll do it for you, father. And she means Batman.
Yeah.
But David Kane, her father, is kind
not
of
her true father. The Bat is her true father.
It just ends up, you don't have to go that far, though, to push the idea of what would the Bat do, or I want to make the Bat prepped.
Well, you got to push that book a little further than it's going.
Well, if you the thing, well, yeah,
in general,
again, that you have to push it off a cliff, maybe. But when you get to it, if you're going to mention the Batman, that's not. You got to get his ass on the cover. But then again, is that a thing anymore? Because talking about it and going into Chip Zdarsky and things, I don't know anymore, because people are so kind of turned off by what Batman has become in the books, and that basically kind of boring and basically like not really anything
Sadly,
good.
right now, everybody's upset with Chip Zdarsky's run on the Batman. Over in Detective Comics, everybody's losing their mind because Bruce Wayne is sleeping with Joe Chill's daughter. And in Batman and Robin, sadly, because it didn't get a new #1, nobody's reading it.
Yeah, like exactly. Well, there you go. And as you say, even when you have what I think is one of the better books, it's one of my favorites, is the Batman and Robin by Phil Kennedy Johnson. But what happens on that, he's doing a little less of, which is good. But people, when they give applause to Joshua Williamson, one thing that I kept saying throughout that whole kind of run, I don't even consider it a run. That's the problem. But the run, like out the door, the end up where Batman always took a back seat. We said it all the time that Batman couldn't figure shit out. It was always somebody else. But because you want to elevate Damian, you end up having him solve things or him do it, not Batman, which is a problem. I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson has got a good mix of that. But boy, I do like Detective Comics more than I did with Ram V. But still, people don't like Tom Taylor. There's always something, and this is
I
where
enjoy Detective Comics and Batman and Robin now.
I do like both of them. Now, Chip Zdarsky's Batman, you actually, for one of the few times, you actually started disliking it before me, because that multiversal shit,
stuff
it
fucking
really
ruined
threw
it.
you.
Once we ended the fail-safe stuff, it all went downhill.
And where I want to, like,
here's the 3 Jokers that I'm rewriting for no reason, and also it makes no sense to the idea that we created before for the idea of 3 Jokers that started this with the multiversal stuff.
Well, and we'll let this talk kind of segue into Batman, obviously, but the Chip Zdarsky seemed like he had a million ideas, all of them Grant Morrison's, and the idea of how to bring them together was never there, and things kept getting disjointed. Get stop, start, stop, start. The whole Gotham War was ridiculous. All that stuff going on. Even the idea that when Chip Zdarsky has the end of this run, and boy, this issue that we're going to talk about feels like either they said you're done and you don't have a lot of time, whatever it would be, this ending of thinking that this would be a smart way to tie things up, it's not. It just kind of gets thrown at you. But even the idea where Batman ends up like, I've been trying to do the good stuff and whatever. I'm like, you haven't been doing that for that long. Like
Bruce Wayne has been trying to do the good stuff as Bruce Wayne.
But even that really hasn't, because of the idea that he did lose his money. He was kind of like Chip Zdarsky pulls that all out of his mind and ends up not caring about stuff. And then when he's beating the crap, I'll talk about it. When he's beating the crap out of KGBs,
Commander Star,
like, you really deserve this. You did this. You're making my city go down. I'm like, why didn't you do that to Catwoman after the bullshit she did in the Gotham War? I mean, she did
Batman
a lot
beat
worse.
The shit out of Catwoman.
I don't even know what happened. At the end, it was just like, well, you know what? That was pretty wacky. Let's get out of here. But of course, he's taking it out on KGB's also Chip Zdarsky. Unlike us, unfortunately, not realizing that KGB's has been back a bunch of times, but
he's been rebuilt now. His face, his arm, everything's been like,
I think he's saying that. He's saying that from the Siberia shit from before. He's been back before that. you don't have a mention
Ever
of the
since
golden
that
arm.
Like that living gold
Yeah,
arm
there
that
we
we
go.
had.
The
Ever
gold
since
arm
then.
was great. But so with that, though, I will say that one of the things some people have been asking me, it's great when people say, hey, Jim, you're pretty handsome. I'm like, maybe. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn. But they do ask, hey, what book should I be reading? Some people are hearing some words on the street. One of the things, again, I said that people seem to really watch the thing on YouTube. Like suddenly people who thought we were, disappeared, we were back.
Gone, yeah.
And so some people hearing the stuff then got interested. And that's one of the things too, that we always get the reputation of trying to convince people not to read things when what we really want to do is let them read it. But if it's bad, we're going to tell you about it. But they said, hey, what books would you read? And even saying to me, Marvel, indie, whatever. And I came up with this idea, this wacky thing of there's not a lot of books that I could just say, go read that. There isn't a lot. A lot of the books end up being, go read that, but you might not like this, or but you have to do this, or but it's a weird play. Like there's a lot of books, and we talked about it with the $25
You got a lot of books out there that require homework because of absolute power.
Well, there is homework in that, and a lot of that would be. I'm saying like even the idea of saying, "Hey, read Batman and Robin," but you might want to skip the Joshua Williams stuff before and just start at this number, or even at a Marvel. I like Incredible Hulk enough, Philip Kennedy Johnson, but it's not great. So I don't want to say like read this because it's the stupendous thing that you love. I always have to say with these books, but you might not like this, or it gets boring at this point. And I really like the point where we're like, this book is awesome. And we go, but we don't even do a year-end book of the year thing anymore. And I'd like it to get to a point where we do that, where there's like so many great books there. Or when we do the $25 do or die pull list, and we're like, I can't fit all these books on there. That hasn't happened in a bit, but hopefully we'll get to it. But here we are. I just wanted to mention the idea that people seem to be a bit more excited and wanting to know about books, but I didn't know what to actually say. Oh, you have to read this. Superman, I said, but even that, you got to go back. It's some weird stuff going on. And so, like the whole farm and graft, not great.
Well, that's the thing is, I don't know where you expect these people to jump in. I would just say with the current arc that you're reading, because like, hey, you should read Batman. Should I start at issue number 1? No, just read what's current. Thing.
You could start with, like just say, hey, start with Chip Zdarsky deal, but I wouldn't even do that. What I said actually was, you like The Hush? Yeah, I love. Just wait. That's coming up next month. It starts The Hush, and that's kind of something. That's what I kind of get. Now we might read it and it sucks, and we say whatever, but I want that, like, say, hey, do you like this? They get excited. Go read that. Not just say, well, don't do that. I'm not just saying continuity and story and, hey, these things have been going on. I'm talking about just some things that happen in it. And I just want to like the books, Eric. I'm really setting this up because I didn't like much this week. And we're probably going to argue. And then people are going to be, rolling their eyes at Negative Jim. Negative Jimmy. Well, here we go. Negative Jimmy's back.
So you're telling me you're jumping into this, you have to give a lot of caveats.
You see what's happening right now. Well, again, that's the other thing. But I don't want to sound like, because then I get called out, and I have been called out on even videos for other things of, this guy doesn't like anything. And I'm like, no, I kind of like Scotch eggs. I like that, Eric. I like the Eagles, right? But, comics now. But there's always something to like. And I just want to point that out, even if they're not this week's book. I am running scared. I'm running scared, Eric. Here we go. It's Batman. Oh, the Chip Zdarsky. That's why I wanted to mention that you hated it before I did. Chip Zdarsky.
I know what you're doing.
Chip Zdarsky. The Dying City finale. Written by Chip Zdarsky. Art by Jorge Jimenez and Tony S. Daniel. That's kind of the saving grace. Colors by Tomo Moray and letters by Clayton Coles. So you end up, we're going to tie up a lot of things. And a lot of things, and if you didn't watch or listen to our Batman Off-World review, there are times when you have to end things, whether it's the idea of a 6-issue, maybe you get to issue 6, or maybe a run kind of ends a little early, whatever. But there's times when you set things up way too big to actually get a really clever, really cool ending. And I think some of that is here, only to the point, though, it's like weird beyond of, I have to stop World War III. Like when Batman starts saying that, it's way too big and really kind of makes me roll my eyes of, now you're going way too big, way too big.
We got to stop Leonid Cole for working with the Court of Owls, going back to Russia with, Enigma's master decoder, which can hack anything, because anybody who has this pretty much rules the world. So we have to freaking grab a hold of a jetliner and then, have Batman take this jetliner down safely in the city while crashing it to stop Leonid Cole from getting this out of the city.
Yeah, and so a lot of times when you end up having these things, you're going to have to go back, God. You kind of do that, but you also kind of go, well, no, a little dumb, that God. But again, this Leonid, he has the launch codes there. He's going to go. Now, with that, I wish that Batman did something right away of, okay, I have to send this EMP so that he can't upload it to the cloud, or they're not going to do that because the protocol this or that, because I'm thinking this shit is already out there. You would send it immediately. In the meantime, Batman launches himself up and attaches to the plane, and then you're going to just have what Chip Zdarsky is hoping is going to be just a crazy ass, an action scene that maybe people will be able to go with without really thinking through.
It's weird because you have Batman on a plane trying to take it down. Like I said before, he has to try to take this thing down. He's going to blow up the wings. He has to do it simultaneously, blowing off both wings so it doesn't start turning one side or the other, doing a barrel roll either which way. But when we do this, you have to stop to think to yourself, he has these two guns that the bad guys were using. He's got to blow up the bombs that he's placed on the wings. He's like, I hate feeling these in my hands. I'm like, no, shut up, Batman. You don't use guns, but you know how to use guns. We've talked about this many a times. The idea of you using a gun on a person is the most absurd thing ever. You do not kill, but the idea that you have these tools at your disposal, right? It's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, even right before that, he has the cold steel of his grappling hook that goes. He is using this to hopefully, he thinks, save people. You don't have to remind us. I mean,
even
that's
the idea that, we have this plane coming down. We have Batman talking to Harvey Bullock about the idea, look, I need you to go and evacuate people on this so-and-so street because this is where the plane is going to be coming down. Harvey Bullock's like, okay, everybody go. Commissioner Vandal Savage is like, no, we need all available officers that we have dealing with the protests on the streets. Nobody can go. You stay right here at the Enigma Tech building. And the idea then becomes, when you find out at the end, when Batman does crash the plane down, it's right where the protests are happening in the streets. So there's not a problem. I have no idea.
That's why
Harvey and the rest of the cops, they go anyway. Harvey ends up getting fired by the end of this, but we end up going exactly where they were going to go anyway. So we didn't have to take any of the cops away from where they're going.
And it's funny because, again, it's the end of a run. He's done. And you usually put the toys back in the toy box. That's the big thing. First up, there's not a lot of toys to put back in the toy box. And the idea that one of them is Harvey's again fired. I'm like, you didn't have to put that back in. You could have ended up where it just said. Yeah, so that's weird. But also, I just imagine, I don't know if you know this, Eric, but I have really bad luck. I'm not a real, I'm a master of disaster. You said it. So if me and you are in Gotham, and this is what I don't love about what Batman ends up doing. Here's me and you in Gotham. Hey, Eric, why don't we go over there? Oh, no, the plane fuel. He's just letting the fuel out over the city. Then he blows up the wings. They have to go somewhere.
He's letting the plane out over the bay.
No, there is no bay at that point. They are over the city. You see when the wings blow up, he's over buildings. Those wings don't disappear. The next, we're like, get away from that fuel. Oh, no, the wings. And then they're falling on me. There's people probably dying from this shit already. But the idea is to be this big action scene. It tended for me to think of Tom King with the urban surfing the plane into Gotham.
The first issue of his run,
Mom and Dad, is this a good death? Things like that. So that made me roll my eyes. And just the idea of, what is this? You end up where you want to end. Oh, my God, World War III. So he gets on the plane. He doesn't say, get off my plane. That would have been pretty cool. But it's not his plane, Eric. So that wouldn't make sense. So he opens up the door. He goes and he punches the guy, elbows the guy out. But you can't kill anybody. So he grapples. The guy's leg is just completely severed off. It's so ridiculous.
It's just like Jason Bard.
Yeah. And so then the guy, Leonid, he shoots. Batman, you don't even really get a great play of what the hell even happened, except the ricochet went back at him.
Batman deflected. Exactly. Batman didn't kill anybody.
That's the thing, though. It's such a weird play that to not really see in the way you're more concerned of, oh, no, the pilot, he gets hit and, but nobody's getting sucked out holes and shit like that.
No, Batman's making sure that people don't get sucked out of holes here because Batman, that would be on Batman in his mind. But when he, deflects a bullet off of his gauntlet and it goes through Leonid into the cockpit, killing one of the pilots as well. But we have two people dead here because Batman raised a fist.
Because he raised a fist. And now you could say, well, that was going to kill him. I'm like, I don't know. We're getting that gray area. I'm telling you, you could have the ledger of Batman and if he kills or not, right? We know he doesn't, but doesn't he? He gets the idea. There's times where he'll like not grab a guy and the guy falls off a building. Okay, that might be on the guy, but there's times where he'll push a guy and the guy will then trip and fall. I'm like, well, that log there might have killed him. This is weird. And when you get it, you don't, in my mind, you're rushing through these scenes. So much rush in there. That was kind of a pun. But this Leonid, you don't even get like a really good idea. He's just there and you're like, oh, the ricochet, it went back. And he's like, why are you doing this? And then even then when he says, listen, this Gotham City, the city of light, I'm like, I don't know if you really know the city. And the idea that it's the boogeyman to the children back in Russia, I think that in my mind, Gotham should be like, hey, everybody, not the boogeyman, the poster child of that's the shit that goes wrong because he always loses the city. This isn't a city that...
Exactly. It's the boogeyman. You do not want this to be... You don't want to come here.
The thing is, though, the boogeyman would be more of like, hey, look, they're telling you this or whatever. This is where they should say, this isn't the boogeyman. This is actually why we don't do it. It's not a boogeyman in my mind. But even then, Batman, Chip Zdarsky keeps forgetting, everybody does, that Batman barely has the city in this issue. They're all ready to riot.
It's a dying city,
like that. Well, it always is. And so you have that, and it's Batgirl.
The man can free an entire slag galaxy, but you can't think it save the city.
No, he can never do that. That's slag galaxy. I mean, what we need, everybody deserves Batbot, but I'd rather than Punchbot. But you end up where you get Batgirl in a way here of, it's Batgirl because it's just going to work. He tends in this to go a little too many stats to be just, you jump off the moon, you're going to talk about, exit velocity, all that crazy thing. But people hate it so much.
I love it so much.
But when you do it, you have to play the idea of Batgirl. Like, this is something so impossible, but he's able to do it because he's Batman. Chip Zdarsky gets caught in a no man's land here of trying to, well, the streets are this wide, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it kind of is kind of wasted space that you could just had him fly it down like Tom King and just been done with it. Or how about this?
But ultimately, though, for a Batman book, this is what you want to see Batman doing at this scene, showing you that he can take care of this. I would rather see him taken into the bay.
And you have the play because the shots end up, he can't use the controls, yet he still can dump the fuel. Keep the fuel, figure out how you can steer the plane a little bit to the right and ditch it in the bay, but he ends up landing on the street because it's badass.
And not only just landing on the street, because like I said before, we landed right where the protesters are, even though we said we couldn't take any of the cops away from where they're going.
So much so that he launches himself out of the plane.
And I'm telling you, this is that Batgirl. He lands this wingless plane down the street of this Gotham City right now, and as it's coming to a halt, he leaps out of the front of the cockpit right there, right at KG Beast.
Yeah. So what I feel this issue is a lot of...
It's a cool bunch of scenes right there.
That's it, but this is all it is. It's a smokescreen to make you realize or hope that you don't realize that a lot of the things that have been set up for over a year meant nothing, weren't anything anyway, and that he's just getting the hell out. I mean, the idea that KG Beast ends up being Commander Star makes no sense, even at the point where it plays that game that I hate. Joshua Williamson does it a lot, where they're going to say something in the issue to make you think, oh, that's why it happened. When Batman says, hey there, Anatoly, you kind of got rid of that accent. Pretty cool.
So the Russians fixed you up, fixed your neck, your hand. So
people want to think like at one point you couldn't play along. And at one point maybe have him slip a little and so that, but no, you didn't. So he's like, yeah, my handlers did this and that. It's like, that's just trying to explain shit that we already didn't see. And I hate that. But even then you wonder, well, why aren't the Russians taking KG? He's an old relic. We do not need him. He served this purpose fine. But nothing in this feels like it was original plan.
No. The idea of KG Beast being this whole political character to store, create unrest in Gotham between the two factions of people politically, it just really just comes to a screeching halt because, hey, it's KG Beast and Batman's going to fight him. He really serves no purpose except for creating this unrest, which is immediately just gone by the end of it because everybody's just scared of Batman punching KG Beast in the face repeatedly.
And the unrest, it did jump around, but you could just say you see it in chaos. But the idea, at one point he's yelling that, in fact, Bruce Wayne's a commie. Now he's saying that the capitalism, it's all over. The guy's scrambled here. I thought that he scrambled Nightwing's brains. His brains are all scrambled. He doesn't know what he's saying. But in that, he's also there he's hanging this woman ends up where, again, she's going to be hung. But she's also the idea, like, she's a piece of shit.
Bruce Wayne's assistant, yeah.
There's no reason. Now it's full CEO. I thought it was just assistant. And then you end up like, this woman should be not arrested because you couldn't put, but fired. But now she'll get a promotion, Eric, because she did the right. But then when we get to it, we'll get to the brother deal. This makes no damn sense.
The CEO, though, that is about to be hung, she was going behind Bruce's back, trying to get a merger going on with Enigma Tech. And while she did come clean about it to Bruce previously, the idea, I might have screwed this up because, Enigma wants a complete takeover at this point. He doesn't need to merge. But the idea, her being the CEO, this was a good business move on her part because Bruce Wayne cannot be trusted to run this business.
No, and all the bad press that you get, and even at the end, I mean, you get this wackadoo just talking shade on Bruce, but in this whole deal, he takes down the plane, and in fact, I mean, just so that World War III doesn't happen, Leonid has to die. I don't even know that he grabbed that zip drive. Some kid,
I'm sure he did.
Guy. Again, there's like it almost feels like, yeah, we're done with that. Let's move on, and it's only there to get some cool scenes. In the meantime, you get such things as Mad Hatter, who walks out of the building and like the weirdest interaction with Bullock. Bullock's like, hey, take that damn hat. And he's like, hey, I don't mean harm this time. Batman saved my life, so I endeavor to save his. A fair game.
Gosh, I wanted more Mad Hatter for this. This is all we get. He just scuttles off.
Again, he scuttles off almost the same as like a KG Beast who, I don't even know what happens to KG Beast after this. He just gets punched out. So then you have the play with Gordon and Riddler. And one of the things that really upset you going through all this was the fact that Riddler had changed. He had gotten off of
Zurin had
OCD
made sure to fix him so he would never be able to be compelled to leave his clues, his riddles behind, to be the ultimate threat again. And we have the idea going into this story arc that this is what he's doing, but still has to leave his riddles and his clues every which way. So all of that little thing that we had during the Zurin arc meant nothing for this arc.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the stuff that Chip Zdarsky did going forward, especially by the end, didn't mean anything. You see that it didn't mean anything, whether it was changed or whatnot, but it's kind of nonsense. And so when you're doing it, and some people might say, well, what are you guys, idiots? Riddler is Riddler.
Why did they say that?
The thing is, eventually we know that he'll get back to being Riddler. But the idea of him changing and seeing how that change might actually make him more formidable, even though it might not click in his brain. But that's something we thought would be interesting to see. It may have been bad.
The ultimate Riddler. The ultimate threat to Batman.
So if it doesn't work, then you get rid of it. I mean, they keep trying to make Lex good, which we kind of like. But we kind of like it because it's different. And one of the things that a lot of people complain about with a book like a Batman,
it's supposed to be different,
and but Batman, the idea that he's been around so long, and also not even that, he's got such a strict set of rules of things that he can and can't do. What can you do different? Well, one of the things is to change his villains, and that seemed like a cool play, something that might end up being really cool down the line. Like people seem to applaud Tom King at one point because you got sexy, abs Riddler. I wanted something better.
What you got instead was a convoluted story dealing with the Riddler who was using Jervis Tetch's mind control stuff to frame Gordon for the murder of Nakano while creating all this unrest just to make more money for his company, Enigma Tech, and also take over Wayne Industries. So I'm just like, and also sell off. Actually, no, he didn't even want to sell off that whole code breaker to Leonid. That was a different plot altogether because you had the Court of the Owls on top of this doing their own thing separately.
Yeah, so what you really
do... But not the actual Court of the Owls, only in name only, because you just had Leonid Cole doing bullshit.
In this ending, it gets so convoluted that there's no way that you can do anything with it. When we see Riddler again, it'll just be Riddler.
It's just Riddler,
yeah, so it's a shame. And again, people might say, well, I want Riddler, but we wanted to see this new guy who actually could get out of his own way. With the big, the joke is he has his dick prints and everything with these riddles and stuff. Well, what do you do when he doesn't have that and he's actually, focused and serious? And
capable.
That's what it started getting towards that with this whole thing of taking down Wayne Industries. But then got wacky.
Scott Snyder's 0 year, if Enigma didn't have this, OCD, this compulsion to leave these things behind and do his Riddler bullshit, we would still be in the Savage City.
Exactly.
Batman wouldn't have won.
Yeah, it'd be green all over the place. So when you have that, the idea of using the tech, using, Mad Hatter's tech to then get Gordon to murder Nakano, Mayor Nakano, at a point, even that I thought was supposed to be a thing because, again, it's cheating. You end up having Gordon cheating and having sex with Mayor Nakano's wife, right?
Koyuki,
So you have that. In the meantime, Bruce finds out that his dad, lo and behold, may have cheated on his mom. They kind of go right away, well, I don't know. And hey, they
aren't
worked
the
it
men
out.
I thought they were.
But this is a deal of what I thought was really pretty much right there on Front Street, the idea that Batman's going to learn that while some people may not do things, and the idea of putting people on pedestals. And of course, your dad who dies when you're 8 years old, you're going to think he did nothing wrong. And when you find that out, it would really hurt you and try to figure it out. But lo and behold, right there's a Jim Gordon who you respect, think is one of the best men you've seen. He also had a little faltering there and did it. It got so convoluted and then got away from that. Then it just becomes murder nonsense. And then at the end, he's got to be arrested.
I'm telling you, it's such a weird idea, too, because Jim Gordon is going to try to go back on the force because, he wants his job back, but also keep an eye on Vandal Savage. He thinks Vandal Savage will let him in because he'll put him on as a beat cop, just trying to humiliate him at this point. But he's going to go back on the force. I don't know what Harvey Bullock's going to do, but in this whole confrontation that Batman has with Jim Gordon about what happened previously with the death of Mayor Nakano, it seems that, yes, he was mind-controlled for a time, but when Nakano punched him in the face, it broke the mind-control glasses, and then Gordon still shot him. And even though we're bringing up these weird things about taking people off of pedestals and just seeing them for the human they are, we end the conversation with the idea, yeah, you totally did just kill that man, I guess, huh? But no, don't worry, Gordon. Well, the Jervis tech has a lingering effect. You make this weird,
yeah. And then he even said though, he said, no, it didn't. And Batman's like, I didn't hear you.
Shut up. I gave you an out.
Where you're playing a Batman where all of a sudden now he's just overlooking things, which is fine. At the end, it's what it is.
You're always playing this Batman because Gordon is just now in the same corner that Damian is, that Jason Todd is, and then over there it's like we know what happened, we don't talk about it.
It would be like the idea that Damian's like, or Cassandra Cain, the idea you were made to kill. Remember at that one point in the Batman and Robin Eternal, one of the things that they spelled out, she was made like she had to kill 500 people before she got breakfast. And it almost, this feels like, well, you had to kill those 500. Well, oh, yeah, but I killed 501. Just as a whim, I went and killed, we won't talk about that. But the play in this, the idea of having that.
I can't even say the word. Ambiguity. The idea that you leave this ambiguous as it is, though, with the idea, did Jim Gordon do it or not, and we move on, not care, seems like such a weird choice. And then when you actually meet Bruce's brother by the end of this, the idea, is this Bruce's brother? He had a DNA test. His lawyers walked away from the whole case, so he's not going to get any of the shares from Wayne Industries. But the idea, though, is that I thought they were going to leave this ambiguous as well, but he gives the DNA folder to Bruce, and Bruce is like, oh no, he's not my brother at all.
And that's the weird play of it too, because even then, you do end up where you have, hey, text mind control technology was lingering effect. You didn't. And he's like, no, I was angry. That was my anger. I pulled it, not the tech. Like, it almost doesn't end up for Batman it is, but Gordon's like, no. And that's wrong.
Well, I'm saying, the idea you should have left a brother ambiguous and not left this I can't say the words anymore.
Ambiguous. I think that it just should have been straight up. You had the ambiguous things on, and then what you should have had Gordon say is not, no, he smashed them all.
Let it be.
It wasn't that. He should say, well, I thought I was a good enough man to fight through something like that. I never thought that anybody could even control me to kill somebody. And then Batman would say,
oh yeah, Commissioner?
And would say to Gordon, like, listen, some good people do get manipulated. They end up, you could have had that. But in the play, though, you never really got that A plus B equals C type deal of, oh, wait a minute, I think my dad was a piece of shit because what he did to my mom and whatnot, and then ends up where
he was
Gordon,
human.
But he doesn't even get to that. He just kind of never deals with it. And then when you have the Gordon stuff, that was the perfect thing to say. Well, I thought that he was that makes me feel better, that my dad just whatever. They never got to that. They ended up, that got just pushed aside, and then it became murder mystery with Gordon, and even at the end being that weird deal. But as we're going through all this, like, you end up where Riddler and Gordon have their little scene. It means nothing. It really means nothing at all.
Even after all that Riddler has put Gordon through, Gordon is still willing to save the Riddler.
Yeah, and that's fine. And even he has the line, a good man, I'm not perfect, whatever. But then at the end, well, what happened to the Riddler? I think he's using his money to get away.
He used his money and he got bailed out. He's going to get out of this.
You're going through all of this stuff. And again, I guess you can do whatever, because Gordon, certainly there should have at least still been a trial. But you end up where all this going down, and then he goes to see Bill, his supposed brother. So he goes in. This guy, of
Will.
course, he's going to go by Bill. This guy's a wreck. Like the minute that Bruce walks in, he's like, yeah, either your mother was fucking ugly or this isn't true. Because look at this guy. This guy's a wreck. So yeah,
he's had a hard life. He's not a billionaire.
Hard life, but he seems to think he has a great life, and that's the thing. He's kind of dumpy. And it looks like he drinks. I at one point from the side,
with you?
I thought the guy was going to, as Bruce walked away, he was going to ha-cha-cha-cha. So, but because this is just Chip Zdarsky, like, why would this guy doesn't have to shame Bruce Wayne in this way. It's just a weird play of just, it seems like it's what Chip Zdarsky wants to say. But what was he doing? Like, all of this just makes everybody look stupid. The idea that Bruce Wayne, hey, give your shares, not once, well, I have to see the test. I want to see the
saying
deal.
The idea that, like, I'm guessing Court of Owl's lawyers came in, started doing all these things. This is, like, Bruce Wayne's brother. He demands 50% of the Wayne Enterprises shares and stuff along the. Everybody's going with this before ever getting a DNA test. What's that DNA test that came in? All the lawyers scrammed out of there. They weren't on the case anymore, and it was over.
I think he's saying they scrambled when the Russians left. That was when they just bailed, and like he went and got that. Here's the thing. The Court of the Owl sets this up. They find out somehow that you did have this hanky-panky going on back in the day between this guy's mom
weird thing to find
and
out.
Thomas, right? Yeah, very weird to find that out. What's also weird is that you get a DNA test and you don't fudge it. Like, these are the Court of the Owls. These are Russians. These are all these things. And yet they find out, oh, no, he's not we'll just keep that here instead of going. And this would have been the story. This should be, and it has been. I mean, this is not a new story. Oh, Bruce Wayne, a brother. So when you get it, you sit there at the end with this DNA, like, what was their plan? Like, what was the plan? Because eventually Bruce is going to demand a DNA test. They have it.
Well,
and
even
it's
beforehand,
not
it seemed like he was willing to give the shares at one point, it seemed like, before having any evidence.
Because he's dumb.
I'm thinking about, after I got done reading this book, I'm just going to go to other billionaires, claim I'm a brother or a son, and demand things before anything happens. And hopefully they'll just give me a freaking severance.
Wouldn't you have thought, because, I mean, I'm telling you, you can tell us, Red, you couldn't play along. You thought the Commander Star was the brother, right? That he was doing.
I was hoping.
I think that Batman would have thought that too, and actually would have tried to figure, and then find out, oh no, it's not. But to have it be just this rando guy that works at a free clinic hospital in Gotham, who ends up just saying, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And then he's like, hey, I wasn't going to take the money. What were you doing then? What were you doing? The idea that he's like, well, they were kind of nothing. He was just there. Okay, I'll go with you, I guess, but I don't want the money. It just, nothing made sense.
He wanted the money. Now that he doesn't get the money, now he can be all like high and mighty. I didn't really want the money.
Through all this, whether or not you want it to be a brother or not.
It's like every time I don't win the Powerball.
And why was it that when you find out at the end that it's not a brother, you're pissed? I was, because I'm like, this sucks. Why did we deal with this?
That's because the story meant nothing overall at the idea that you have DNA confirmation that he's not your brother, but we dealt with it for so long.
So if you had him be the brother, nothing would have changed. And so I kind of wanted it to be I wanted it to be a half brother that wanted no parts of him, and then Bruce will help him out a bit or whatever. That would mean nothing either way. So when you get it at the end, it's just a dud. He wasn't Commander Star. It was, KG Beast. He's a guy who doesn't want the money, but yet was going through all this. But we weren't allowed to see him at one point. Why?
Because we would have looked at that mug and realized that's not a Wayne.
Yeah, well, I would have said Thomas wouldn't screw some lady looking like you. That's what I'd say.
Like me.
Well, maybe you either. Ha-cha-cha-cha. Even then, though, and he's like, I saw what you became. I think that you're a loser and you don't do things right. And then he's like, yeah, but I'm trying to help him. He always had, a Bruce Wayne being a playboy, that's the one deal. But he has always donated money. He always has, buildings going up that he's going to. And this guy just is going like full out, I'm ashamed, whatever. And the idea that he's also going along with this plan, but never himself asked to see the DNA test. And didn't want to afterwards.
What a weird character.
It's such a weird thing. Bill.
Will.
Well, that's the short for Will. It's William. There was an Andy Rooney a TV movie, and I'll call him, slow. He was a little brain challenged, and it was called.
Oh, yeah.
It was called. It was called William Bill for short or something. What's the name of the thing? So anytime I see Will, it was kind of funny, made me laugh. But wasn't supposed to. But I was still mad at my uncle. But yeah, so this scene even at the end, like what is supposed to be tying up a run that you'd be like, oh man, like that's cool. Or, oh man, like it's not even the idea of, I wish that we would have seen a little more. I just get mad at what we did see that was nothing.
Agreed.
And then gets this. I'm like,
half the story that we got for the finale of Chip Zdarsky's run meant nothing overall.
Oh my God. And if you actually, in this, yeah. But then if you go back and think of the things with Zor-En-Arr and the multiverse, like nothing mattered. It didn't.
No.
I'm in it.
Even the idea of adding, like Jervis Tech into the whole thing to like mind control Gordon, and the idea that it broke before he even committed a crime, none of that mattered either.
Would it be funny to you as this is going on, Bruce then throws the DNA test out the window, and as it flutters, it says positive that he is a brother. Bruce is just lying. Even then when he goes out and Leslie, I remember when Leslie at the beginning ended up saying, hey, I don't think that I don't think there's a brother. Not that she knew that Thomas had stepped on out, but he also knew that Thomas and Martha had worked it out. But she said there's no way somebody like your father would abandon somebody that they would have known. See, she kind of called it at the beginning. But again, when he's like, so how was it? He was not what I was expecting. He's a good man, a healer. I'm like, who are you talking to?
He's a healer, just like old Papa.
He's a healer. He is just like my Papa. Earlier, too, you end up where Batman jumps out of fucking plane, punches KG Beast a bunch of times, goes full out ham's going to kill him, and then looks and everybody's looking in shame. And I'm like, are they looking in shame of Batman beating the crap? Or are they looking in shame of what they did? And then Batman goes,
Calm,
yeah, and I like where he's like, I had a speech that I was going to talk about not following people in masks. Oh, whoopsie. I have a mask.
Doodle. I always forget I wear a mask too.
What are you talking about?
Follow me, everybody. I'm the right guy to follow.
What is the shit that he's going to say? Like, listen to me because I'm me with a mask, but don't go with
Turn
that
that
guy.
bat signal on. Check that shit out.
He should have said, and if you want to go, and maybe some people would roll their eyes or whatever, but if I was the editor, I'd say, no. What he should do right there to those people, apologize to those people and say, I fucking let you guys down. The people you think that this is right, because I have made everything wrong and I will make it better. But even then, I like where he's there and he's like yelling to Leonid, you're ruining everything Bruce Wayne did. I'm like, these guys know so much. They have to know. They knew that your father was having sex with a nurse. And actually like an intern too, which that's like crazier. But you end up then going to the board and stuff. Yeah, well, I'm saying that's like something where people really got canceled a lot by doing that shit. So you ended up because of the power thing. And you even mentioned like, well, he was in a position of power, but oh well. But you end up where it's not the brother, so that meant nothing. So then you get the classic, like, hey, Gordon, you got a cup of coffee for me? I'm like, I like the scene a little, just didn't feel like Batman. I'll tell you, Batman shows up with like a whole like gallon of coffee, just guzzling it because that's what he's always prepared there. But they start talking, and that's where, hey, it's going to tie things up. Hey, the Russians, they're done. Enigma, he got away, the money, whatever, and you're fine. We're not going to go through a trial or anything. You're A-okay. He still wants his job back and things like that. And you mentioned earlier when they did originally, when he wanted his job back, you did have Vandal Savage say, hey, you could be a B cup, you do this. And I think at that point, I did get a little upset thinking that I think Gordon, being Gordon, that good guy, I think he would have taken that and like, I'm going to work up from the bottom floor up again. But yeah,
he wanted to be a PI with his buddy Harvey.
No, he wanted to be commissioner again. Is what he wanted. But you end up where he ends, and that's what really the anger and that stuff led to him really kind of being the piece of shit with him and what's it called, his wife. When you ended up having Kiyoki. It wasn't that he was, cheating and whatever, because he's not, but she was. But it was the idea that he was doing it to get back at Nakano because he was pissed and really wanted inside info. It was kind of a gray area.
Well, Nakano talks a lot of shit, too. I can understand this vengeance play.
Yeah, so, she's off to Metropolis, right? She should go to Central City. It's better there. But then he admits, hey, I did kill him after the tech went down. I'm waiting for Batman. I thought Batman was just going to say, listen, there are no cameras. Nobody, you just shut your mouth.
Shut the fuck up.
From your mouth to God's ears. I am not going to, I had, what's that you say? I had problems with that plan. Actually,
you're not getting on that painting.
He ends up, it's like, you're talking into my right ear. That's the ear that baby Wrath was talking in, the whisper. Back in the day, I can't hear shit out of that. But you end up where he's like, all right. And it is funny. Gordon's desperately saying, no, I'm guilty. And there's a call, break in at 4th and Wilmington. He's like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And then leaves and says, hey, and this is where you get it. Mistakes were made. Mistakes. He killed a man. Mistakes will always be made. And yeah, I'm telling you, it's like, I crashed a plane and there's a lot of people dead. I don't even know that co-pilot survived, but you end up where he says, both of us are human, Jim, flawed. There's no way around that. All we can do, we can try to do is to be good men. And okay, that's a fine ending, but the guy just admitted that he killed a man and then he's just
very odd ending.
And in that, it's got the weirdest smirk and the guy's trying to teabag my ass. I don't like that. I don't need crotch shot, right? Holy moly.
I don't know, do you?
Maybe. The thing is, I had a song on the Sus Records and one of the lines, tell me if you like this, it was the idea that this lady stinks, right? And I said that when she spreads her legs, he gets seasick. That's pretty good, right?
It might be good enough for the show, though.
Yeah, I heard some shit you said. You said the C word before, so everything's over.
I did, and I will again.
And I ended up hearing you say it's silent but deadly, so there you go. It was,
there I go.
The song itself said, you smell like shit tonight. It was pretty good. I'm not doing well, Eric. I don't know why. But yeah, you get a crotch shot. And the art's great. You end up having just scene after scene of, okay, this is just to wow us in a scene, but not giving us any closure for anything. And then at the end, there's so many things, not loose ends. That's the problem. They're pretty tightened up at the end. They're tied tight in the worst possible way that I can imagine.
Everything that you wanted didn't happen. The most craziest shit happened, and we're ending it. And everything that came before doesn't matter for the story at all.
Yeah, and so... Remember at one point you even said, well, first up you said about the brother and, hey, I want it to be big because that should be big. It wasn't. But even stuff as little as Court of the Owls. Like, where are they left here where they were bullshit already? We thought it might elevate them a bit, but they were just duped by the Russians and leave. And then it's just like nobody mentions them again. It's just done. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It was bad. What would you give it?
I enjoy the art in this issue, but it's pretty much all I enjoy. You got some good fight scenes on the plane with Batman, good action shots of him landing the whole thing and showing what a Batman can do, or a Batgirl at times, but that's really all to take away, and it's just kind of a distraction from the overall lack of story that you have going on here, so I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. I
like the art a lot, and we don't usually do this. Sammy is going to cue it up. I'm giving it a fuck you 5 because this ends a run that wasn't good in the worst possible way. And whether or not they ended up ending it before he wanted it to end, this kind of had, I don't know, for some reason, it did have that, like, bit of spiteful anger that I felt through it of, like, I'm just going to fucking tear this down. You kick me off, what the hell? I don't know. Not quite like Keith Giffen used to do.
No.
Where everybody would die and he would do it. But it just felt like it was like, fuck it. I'm not even going to try. You kicked me off the book. I didn't get to tell my story. But the story before this wasn't great anyway. So the ending was worse. So we're going to move on to the next book, which is an all-in book, Eric, aren't they all? It is Batgirl.
Uh-huh.
It is Batgirl. Well, not all of them, actually. That Batman Off-World was not. Batgirl All-In number 4. Batgirl All-In here. It is Mother, part 4 of 6. I'm sure you love that. But it's Tate Bromhall writing, Takeshi Miyazawa on art, Wayne Foucher on inks, and Mike Spicer on colors. And we have not done much in the series.
No.
The series has pretty much, and we said right away, if you're going to do the basic bitch story of Cass, you're obviously going to have, oh, my mother, Shiva saying, you're too much like the Bat. I don't want to be like you. You have that. Now, in that, and even in this issue, there are points in these 4 issues, which to me, we've had about an issue and a half of story. But there is a point where you get, okay, this would be cool. I want to see more. I want to see the idea of Shiva not always being bad and maybe but we've seen that before. Things get resolved. They never end up fully resolved. And then we get back to this, but this book is doing nothing. You're
doing
throwing
nothing at all.
You
have Batgirl and Lady Shiva running from place to place because of ninjas who are called the Unburied, who have been resurrected because of blue flowers, something that the League of Assassins, we do learn, did years ago, killed all these monks and which created the blue flowers. But we had that whole big thing before where we had the big Unburied guy, and he's all like, he was able to take Cass out. She had to be taken to a train unconscious because of all this whole thing. But now the train is intercepted by the Unburied once again. It gets blown up and derailed, and our heroes fall off. Our heroes and enemies, because we have Nissa Al Ghul, Angel
but they're
Breaker.
Not even, and it's so weird, right? They keep going.
They're pseudo enemies, but like I'm saying, the idea, because you pretty much just have Cass in a room looking at things that we can see, saying the things that we can see, and just kind of driving us nuts. But we actually get off. It's like, all right, we had that guy Cullen, but who kicked Cass's ass previously, and now we have Chodak, the Unbowed, and Nurgle, the Unknown, the brothers of Kalden. So we have the Grandmasters of the Unburied who are just as big and bad as their other brother, who are going to take on our heroes, and Cass is going to have to do her best to try to kick their asses without getting her ass kicked once again.
I will tell you that growing up, we had one Indian family in town, and they had, it was like 3 girls and a boy, and the boy was named Bobby. He was friends with all of us, right? But he had a sister, Nirmal. And that's what I thought of. And I actually went on a couple dates with Nirmal, and I got a lot of hate for that, Eric. A lot of people were upset about that, including her family. But it just reminded me, like, these names, though, again, we're going, I thought we got away from the idea, like a teeny Howard.
I'm just sitting here at Chodak.
I'm telling you, well, that's the thing, like, there's
the Unbowed.
I thought we were past this phase. We had a weird little era of, DC with Leah Williams getting involved, still going, but of having the worst fucking names for characters that we could never remember, never pronounce, is right back here. But the thing that you said that gets me the most is the idea that could be cool, but isn't. The idea that Cass, she does read body language, right? She reads, but reading body language is not telling me somebody's smiling. That's not reading body language. Now, when she says not lying, okay. But when you have heartbeat, when somebody touches you, you're not really reading the body language by saying touch. Then when you stare, you don't have to tell me stare, tense, clench. We see this. We know this. You don't need this.
I'm telling you, these are the worst aspects of it, because you want to see Cass, and I understand a writer wanting to have the portrayal of the body language in the comic and show you something that you don't really get to see, the understanding of it through a visual medium. But when you have Nissa Al Ghul put her hand on Cass's shoulder, and then it's touch, and then they look at each other, and you have stare. I'm like, well, I know, I can fucking look at it.
And I think I was already, and I did, and Tremors. I can see the Tremors. And I do mean the movie, Eric. They're going here with all this going on. Like right away, I said, this could get annoying. What you need to do is have her say these things at like really opportune times. The idea when she's battle ready or whatnot. But he wants to go with this idea that it's always
a micro expression or something along those lines that you don't get to see.
Not breath. Movement. Like, we see that. I know the guy, breath, movement, gait. I mean, even gait would be more like as they come in, because this is when one of the Unburied comes in, and you want to point out that she sees something different from what other people do. One of the things would be not breathing, if that was the case, if these would have been undead, whatever the case, but not just, oh, that guy's breathing, moving, and walking. That's all it is. Oh, no, the Unburied. And so when you do that, though, you're not setting up, and there's too many characters in this already to then introduce unburied priests, monks with weird names, because you're never going to remember them. But this is the play.
Well, you also, I'm saying, you have the League of Shadows, which is already putting,
that's what I'm saying. There's too many people, though.
The idea that Lady Shiva's there, putting her own mother there, putting her on ease, and the idea Angel Breaker with Nissa Al Ghul. But then you have Wu Lin. They forced your blood out of the shadows after decades of peace in East Asia. Will you let that stay? Like, now I got to care about Wu Lin as well?
It's too much. It's too much. We talked about this in, say, The Absolute Superman. The idea in this, it's a Cass book with Shiva, but there's so many other things involved, and
we're not doing anything.
Cass she's not dumb, right? I mean, she has issues back in the day, right? She's talking, but with that all, she just can't get it through her head that with this big threat, she might have to trust some people. I understand that she's not trusting them, but we have to go through page after page, issue after issue of her saying, "Not a friend, nah, you enemy, you make holes in teeth." Yeah, you end up having all this nonsense going. And yet that makes the story not progress. She can't just say, and then, oh, there's Angel Breaker. I like that. Hey, Angel Breaker. Ooh, sheathe the sword. Breaker of angels. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing here? And so you have all this going. And in the meantime, the interesting thing would be, what Cass thinks of Shiva, and actually seeing that people do look at Shiva as being a good person, even though Cass never does. Now, again, that's something we see a lot, but we don't really see the angle of other people recognizing Shiva as a great person and doing great things. I thought that was a neat angle. But then you just introduce all these characters to fight this big bad that then they come in with Nirmal and Jajit. That was their sister's name. They come in, and I'm like, what is going on? Because just because the train derails doesn't mean that you're still not doing anything. This train was derailed the minute they got on it, Eric. The story's derailed. Nothing's happening.
The most interesting part of this issue, in my mind, is when you actually have some time after the train derails. Everybody else is dealing with unburied ninjas, but you have a moment where, Lady Shiva is sitting there trying to, heal her wounds using the blue poppy flower of the unburied, because you can see that it heals everything, but also you get a moment for her to talk about how when Cass was born, this is when Lady Shiva lost her softness. Again, it's stuff that you see all the time, but it's the most in-depth stuff that you could care about this whole thing, but it's immediately interrupted by Chodak and his freaking brother coming in here, Nurgle, or Nurgai, however you're going to pronounce this, and it eventually just gets to where Cass getting the crap kicked out of her again because none of these unburied actually care about Batgirl. So she just comes to the point where everybody else is off doing other things, so they don't care about her in her own book, and we're left with the priest of the Lady Shiva cult saying, "Get on my motorcycle, let's get out of here."
Yeah, and then even that, when you end up and you have any name that starts with Chode, I'm not taking it seriously, Eric. I hate to say it, but you also have those crazy big giant ball necklace. I think that would get in the way. The thing though is in this is it's nothing's going on, but the thing by the end,
nothing has been going on.
It's the weird thing of. I can still see people not loving it, but still going with it because it doesn't do enough to do things bad. It's just not doing anything. So when you do get that bit with Shiva, you end up saying, "Oh my God, that's a really good scene." But it's interrupted by nonsense. And then in that whole thing, Cass is so behind the deal. And then throughout, where I joked at the beginning of the book section deal with your song, the idea that all she keeps doing now, I understand that she's part of the Bat family. I understand that she wants to make them proud, but it's not even that. She just what would the Batman do? What would Batman do? Father, I'll do this. Oh my God. And I just sit there, I'm like, do you know this character? You're just doing surface level shit. And the Batman stuff to me is so surface level. Usually what we'll get is, Shiva, obviously, the Bat has ruined you, that sort of thing. But it's going full over the top for little things that they've grabbed and want to go with. And it's not that interesting. Even then when Shiva, when she says, she starts and she says, oh, and the way to get to Cass will be to mention that lady, Babo. When she's Babo ended up saying, and then Babo ends up saying, hey, she said there's hard and soft, like Dark, I am pretty hard right now. But the idea, I'm the hard. And I realized the soft that I had, it was taken when you were born. You were the soft. It's kind of a weird play, but it's okay of her saying, I really loved you. And then, but you don't even get... I
needed to give you away because of that.
Yeah, and you get glance, touch, smile, not lying, worth, find the words. I'm like, what? Why are you ruining the scene with this bullshit? And so when you do that, that's a really good scene. Cass actually in the art plays out really well for Cass at that, where this is almost like one of those where, yeah, this isn't going with my MO of what I think should be. She is somebody who wants to think of Shiva as that bad thing that ends up making her worldview work, but with Shiva not. That's the interesting thing in this. And we only get drips and drabs of it each issue because we're so mired in, hey, look at there's blood. But then we're interrupted by
ninjas.
There's blood. He's there. And at the one point, I'm blood and you shedded blood and I'm going to bleed. And the guy's like, I'm hungry. Let's eat. And I'm like, so am I. And then you keep going, but it's not interesting. You have what you're having here, Eric, is if I would say to you, this book is a ninja war. You got League of Shadows versus you would think it's cool.
League of Shadows?
That you can't go bad.
Is it really the League of Shadows at this point?
I don't know. Well, that's the weird thing. She does say, and then when you bring up things, when you have Nyssa say, I'm in charge now, I'm like, what does Talia think of this? You're throwing things out that I want to know more of that I don't think are even going to enter this book. But the idea of all this crap going on and nothing happening, it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of yelling at each other and in seeing smiles and glances and touches. And then when the ninja stuff comes, it's so like nothing. It really is nothing. And so the cool ideas are all just pushed aside.
When Batgirl even wakes up after getting her ass kicked by Chodak there, we have the situation where Jayesh is waiting for her to get on the motorcycle. It's like, your mother's been kidnapped. We have to go rescue her. And before, Batgirl can actually get on the motorcycle, you see Nyssa Al Ghul standing there with a sword, all freaking weird looking, like she's possessed. The one who was promised. And she just gets on the back of the bike and they fuck off because I'm like, what is going on with Nyssa now? I have no idea.
I don't know. And if she's just she's dazed, she's in concussion protocol. Also, I do want to say, when she ends up getting her cool ass, I don't know what you'd call it, a leisure jacket. Yeah, she has a trench coat usually. When it gets taken off, I'm like, did you just get off work at the factory? She just looks like a lady who's just downtown at Starbucks.
She's not Talia.
But she ended up with that big giant coat she had on. She looked pretty impressive. But But even then, one of the things that we ended up mentioning was the idea that maybe J.S. is kind of on the down low. He's trying to figure out things, bring his, I guess it was his wife and dog, whatever it was that died. And he wanted, and you continue a lot of talk of that where Nyssa really is like, yeah, you're all upset because I died and what's death and all that stuff going on. I kind of want to see that, but nothing. I mean, we haven't done anything. We've done nothing with this. And the idea of what are we doing anyway? Are you going to stop the unburied? Are you going to cut? Are you trying to get away from it? Nothing's really happening in this book, and it's a dud. But it doesn't do anything wrong necessarily. It's not like Power Girl where you read it. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, it's doing things, and it'll. Tate Brummel is able to give you that little nugget where you're like, okay, that's what I want to see. Not enough for me to continue, and this wouldn't be on my 25 do or die pull list, even though I love Cass. That it's one of those where too many issues in for me to say I'm interested and I think it will pick up. If it does pick up, it's already too late. And that's the thing. If it picks up in issue 8, that's too late. Most people would have dropped it. We'll be talking about it the whole time. And Tate Brummel did end up saying, and it was one of the things Zach told me it, and he couldn't find where Tate Brummel had, shouted out to people and said, this is really only a 6-issue mini. If people respond to it and like it, it will get continued. So that's where it really worries me. Tate Brummel, maybe it will continue. Maybe it's done well enough. It doesn't seem to sell great. It's still labeled as active. Yeah, I'm just saying it was never announced. He, the writer, said specifically they're not going to tell anybody, but they told me it's a 6-issue mini.
They better tell us somebody soon because you need to have some pre-orders up by now.
Well, again, I guess it would be the thing would see if there's a 7 or even whatever. But it's on. It's always got a short leash, it would seem to me. But this is the thing. Tate Brummel saying that, and Zach couldn't find where it was, so we were sure, and then he found it, and he sent me a screenshot of it, where he did say, and he did. So in that, it might have been on Reddit, it might have been somewhere weird, whatever. But
I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah, so the idea of that is, this is what he's giving you for 6 issues, to show you that he has what it takes, and that it's exciting, and wants people to get involved. If this is his best, I don't know that you should go past 6 issues because you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything at all. And how you think this is going to impress people. I just think that you kind of slide under the radar because it's not that crazy bad. It's just there. It's such a mid book, but what would you give it?
I think the art is great in this issue. I like the idea that we have a Batgirl series, but as far as my love goes for the book, because it's just another issue where we're doing the same things over and over again. No real forward, momentum going on for any of the story. I just feel like we're still in the same place that we were in the first issue, and it's just more ninja fights that mean nothing ultimately. And now we're having Batgirl go off to save her mother instead of her mother and Cass trying to leave Gotham. We're just going in another direction with a new partner instead of Lady Shiva. 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm a 4. I like the art as well, but I do think that some of the characters, especially the women's faces, they tend to look a lot alike. So there's points where I do have to sit there and go.
That's just you.
And I say, well, yeah, because I'm colorblind, Eric.
What does that mean?
Doesn't mean anything. I end up where I'm like, oh, that's Shiva. Oh, that's her. Oh, that. I'm telling you, at the end, I did not realize that was Nyssa at first because of her losing that cape deal, the trench jacket deal. Yeah. I like that jacket. Pretty cool jacket. But why, if you're a ninja that you're going to fight, you don't get a white jacket? That's the worst. You're going to be cleaning that shit all the time. But yeah, when I saw him, like, who is that? Oh, that's Nyssa. But I like the motorbike, right? The motorbike era. But I also... Right. I'm about to cough, too, so we're going to move on to the next book. But yeah, I'm a did I say 4 or 4.5?
You said 4.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 4. So we'll move on to the next one. What is it to end this section of books?
Two-Face, number 3, written by Christian Ward with art by Fabio Veres, Ivan Placencio, and Hassan Asmain El Hal. And we continue our Two-Face story where the Harvey Dent is trying to use his white church as a means of getting his old life back. And it still makes no sense for the idea this is in his head. But for whatever reason, this is what's in his head. And it seems like a weird thing because I talked about previously where I was going to be disappointed if this was going to go along the lines of the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, or if you just want to call it Batman the Animated Series, where Two-Face had put on a new persona outside of the regular Big Bad Harv and Harvey Dent Two-Face situation that they have, and just became this shadow hand. But it feels like it's a little bit different the way it's presented, because it just felt like when he became the judge in that was cool, because he was trying to go against his criminal nature. It was a wild persona that was created to battle against himself. In this one, the idea that you learn that Two-Face is the man behind the shadowed hand who's trying to go against all this thing, it's just done in a way that I want to see more, because when we see Harvey Dent of the mind, we see Two-Face actually walking into his mind and seeing a Harvey Dent, like an unscarred Harvey Dent. He's looking off into the distance, the idea where in his mind he can see him getting back to his old life, but also he can see like the prison that he's created for Big Bad Harv, the Two-Face persona. So right there, it seems like, is it the him of now and also like the good side, the bad side? But right away, it seems like there are three personas going on.
I don't think there is.
I don't know. But it's weird, though, because you have the Two-Face normal one, you have the good Harv that wants to like go to the future about what he wants, and you have the Big Bad Harv persona locked away in the prison of your mind.
I just think the one that's running the thing is the big bad one, and I think that's a Lady Hawk situation. When he goes to bed at night in the prison of the mind, he's now in the regular thing. And even then, when this guy Doubt comes, it's on time where Harvey knows this is a setup and says, that's my curtain call. He knows that this is going to happen. I think they've set it up already in the here and now, and that's his way to break out. He even says, it's my curtain call. Get ready for the real show to begin. When this guy starts talking, he's like, okay, this is what's planned. This is when we were going to do it. I just think it's going to be not the way you're saying it would be really cool. I don't think it's going to be that. I really don't. I think it's just going to be bad Harvey that comes out at night, freaks him out at night.
If you do have bad Harvey, it makes sense, because we do learn by the end of this issue, the person behind the shadow hand who's guiding everybody with the characters that we saw and trying to, like, throw a monkey wrench in all of the mafias and, like, super villains of Gotham. The idea is he's trying to get back at all these assholes who don't see Two-Face as the king. So that feels like a big bad Harv situation. But what if it's also, like, to a degree, the idea of the good Harvey Dent who just wants to stick it to these asshole criminals?
The thing that I wish was going on, because you have the most ridiculous premise that Harvey's like, if I do this criminal shit here,
it is ridiculous.
They're going to let me be DI. I wish that what they had was that
hopes and dreams.
Harvey
don't have to be real.
Really. Harvey has trapped bad, Two-Face in his head. And I wish it was one of those things, because, idle hands, Eric. I wish it was where the good Harvey was the DA, right? He doesn't. Right. If he can keep himself busy with these things, then
these cases,
you end up where the bad Harvey doesn't come out. And then in the meantime, that play of like, well, it looks like the bad Harvey's setting up these cases. Like, I think that would have been more interesting. The whole idea of him thinking he's going to be DA and whatever is so ridiculous. Weird. So I wish it was just
even the idea of working with criminals and sending all the good work he's been doing with these criminals who are breaking the law and who he's then murdering if they're guilty. Hey, state attorney, what do you think about all this? Should I come back to prosecution?
I think he'd be allowed. And they're like, well, Gordon might be back and he murdered somebody. So he just those glasses meant nothing. But in the deal, again, what I think that, and it's not playing out the idea of, look at Harvey's insane. Like, he really does think, and it seems like everybody's kind of going with it. I just wish the idea of, at this point, when it is revealed that it's bad Harvey, like the idea that Two-Face is Harvey's trying to keep Two-Face in his head. In the meantime, the cases that are being set up by Two-Face, like, oh my God, what's going on? But the idea of bad Two-Face doing this to cause chaos and things like that, it just ends up, to me, it just ends up kind of seeming basic.
Well, it's a weird play because it really does seem like the idea of all the time that Big Bad Harv has in his man-made prison that good Harvey has made for him. The idea that he is stress testing, he has all these constructs of the mind that Harvey has put in there of this prison, all past memories, all these people, and he is actually creating a problem. So Harvey is not getting sleep. He's being stressed out. He's not having the concentration that he would need to keep the Big Bad Harv at bay. But ultimately, it just seems like a weird thing. So if Big Bad Harv is the man behind the shadowed hand, because he's just waiting for Doubt to come in there and say, like, I doubt you can keep Big Bad Harv inside your mind anymore.
Yeah, and even the idea, like, maybe the stress is to cause it so that when he does go to sleep, he just passes out. And maybe it'll be something. But the idea of this issue, you have each issue you've liked more than I have, but it is that idea of, okay, what's the next case? And the cases were 3 issues in. Now they're not even barely cases anymore. They were this one barely.
Well, this is the thing is we're not doing white church cases. This is the idea we're going outside the white church, the courtroom of the criminals, to try to find out who kidnapped or stole, whatever you want to consider, Scarface from ventriloquist Arnold Wesker. And the idea that we do find after. Well, I'm saying he does nothing because he shouldn't be able to do anything. But the idea, though, you go to Noonan's Sleazy Bar, start pounding some heads, asking around, and we realize that Lake Cantwell, the new assistant of Harvey Dent, she used to be around this neighborhood. I'm a little pissed off that Bator is not the bartender at Noonan's Sleazy Bar here, but maybe it was his night off, and we have another person that knew Lake back in the day. She's willing to give up the goods. But it's this whole pretty much premise to get, like, our heroes, our pseudo-heroes, and Two-Face and Lake, two baby doll Mario doll that we have here, because she has kidnapped Scarface because she wants to start a family. And it's such a funny idea to me that we don't have a lot of baby doll. Even when you had her come back in the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, I always forget if that's what it's called. I'm just going to go with Batman the Animated Series, but the idea where she had a relationship with Killer Croc and now she's just like, wants a relationship with Scarface.
Yeah, but it's more brother. That's more, it seems like that's like a brother.
She wants to start a family.
Well, again, though, but it wasn't her. She was manipulated. She was manipulated.
Like everybody here, everybody's like been manipulated to put Big Bad. I was going to say Big Bad Heart, but Two-Face on the road to get to this point where Doubt, one of the Shadowed Hand, who's a lot like the character Rumor from Umbrella Academy, where she I heard a rumor of this, and he has to start a sentence with "I doubt this," and he's a pusher, a mental pusher. We can make you do things against your will.
Yeah, and again, though, when you get that whole idea of the Harvey, I mean, it is, unless it changes, it does something. But I just think that he's not able to spell it out as well, and it's just going to be the same. And what we've had, I said it recently, I think last week during our Patreon only deal, kind of getting sick of, I like comics, right? But now it's become, everything's just ripped off of one of them, mainly the Batman the Animated Series. A lot of these things are, but a lot of things are just like, oh, that happened in the comic, we'll do this, but doesn't make it any better or whatnot. And in this, I just think it's the same story. I just think Harvey has been manipulating at night, because it kind of seems like he does the things at night, whatnot. But we'll see.
But it's so weird to me, the idea. Obviously, you could make the case that Big Bad Harvey can get out when Harvey himself is not concentrating. Like, exactly, when he's not thinking about keeping Big Bad Harvey locked away, he's able to get out. But this whole prison system that he's made up for him, it seems like he is locked away and needs to find a different way out besides her. So when you have the idea that Two-Face is the leader of the Shadow Hand, who put all these people together to make everybody fear Two-Face once again, it just seems like it should be somebody else.
Yeah, I just go with the idea again. Though, like, they don't even, like, you would think now you're going to try to hide the story when Doubt starts talking, like, who's your boss? You really don't know. I thought it was obvious. It's you. He's not saying, oh, it's this wacky version, that sort of thing. But one of the things that I get then that could be maybe the clever angle is what we find out is all along, Bad Harvey could get out. And then you'd say, well, why is he doing the stress test and stuff like this? This is so when the good Harvey gets locked away, he can't get out. Like, he's setting this, you know what I mean? That he's setting it up.
Just the idea that we have, like, Two-Face Harvey Dent walk into his own mind to see the good Harvey Dent and know that the bad Harvey Dent's locked away in another prison section. It seems like right there are three. And the idea, but Two-Face as we know him in the physical realm, he's just Two-Face, and he wants to put on the idea of good Harvey is of the mind. So I'm really thinking to myself that maybe good Harvey is the one behind all this.
Maybe. And, also, I said the funny play would be he does have to set up these he has to set up these cases. It might just be this crazy deal that he just loses his deal and wants to set. But even then, I don't know, because it seems like Bad Harvey in the mind can kind of tell what's going on a bit. He can see some things. They have some things pop up. And he's never once, because he's not going to go for a third persona either. He's going to be fucking furious if there's a third guy. But yet at the end, like I said, when Doubt goes and says, and this is the whole break down the walls type moment. And Harvey, Two-Face Harvey in jail's like, yep, right on time. I'm getting out of here. Like, it's a setup. Like, he was involved. He set this up to get Doubt.
It also feels like the idea was outside of this, though. Like, maybe Big Bad Harvey thought other things were happening because he created all these stressors. The idea of the white blood cells coming in and taking out all of these chaos things that he's created inside this prison of the mind. He was waiting for this door because he thought he was doing that himself.
But it's just like the idea where they're doing that. He's doing the stuff kind of calm down, and then he's like, yep, right on time. That's my curtain call. Get ready for the real show to begin. And I just get the idea that it's going to be that it's just Harvey, Two-Face.
But I'll tell you, when you get to the whole big reveal at the end, when Harvey grabs a hold of Doubt, it's like, what's happening in Gotham? What is the Shadow Hand's plan? He's like, disruption, chaos, to undo you and the White Church. What you and the White Church are doing, weakening the gang, set them against each other until he returns and we take over. It's like, until who returns? Who's your boss? You really don't know. I thought it was obvious. It's you. It's like, it's always been you. You've been orchestrating this every night to undermine the White Church and all gangs in Gotham that think Two-Face isn't king, to take back the city, to take back your body. You think you actually wanted a normal law-abiding life? Ha! And you were lying to yourself, Harvey. You never stood a chance. And you see the Two-Face of the mind, sinking into his own mind at this point. But when I was reading this part, obviously we've been talking about the idea of a third persona possibly being that whole thing, like the big reveal. When I was reading this, I heard I don't think you'd have a reference for it, but the ending to the Saw, whenever you have the big Saw ending to any of the Saw movies, you have that music start playing when you see all the little things that you've seen along the way to the point where he slams a door and says, "Game over." And I saw that right here. I heard it in my mind. I'm like, oh, God damn, that was pretty epic.
I hated it. I fucking hated it, and I'll tell you why. It's the same thing that we said about the Riddler. You're just setting up to just get back to Two-Face. I thought there were interesting things they were dealing with, and this just, again, you slam the door. That's what you slam the door on. You slam the door of just, oh, Two-Face is back, and then it'll be put away again, and we won't see him for a while. I just, the idea of this as Harvey's back as Two-Face, as he's ruling this and that, I'm like, yeah. And also, the idea there'd be other things involved, like Penguin would be involved. We'll see. I don't think it's not going big enough for some things either of anybody else getting involved. I just didn't like it. I think that it's surface level with a lot of things being thrown in to kind of, hey, I'll shine here or this trinket here. But all in all, it makes no sense that Harvey wants to be DA. And at the end, I don't care. We didn't need a book to get Two-Face back. He's kind of back, and I kind of like the idea.
We didn't need that because he was back at the end of Ram V's Detective Comics run.
This isn't like if this was the Penguin and that Tom King bullshit that you're bringing him back or whatever. I just thought, it's just a Two-Face. It's just a Two-Face. If you like Two-Face, you can have fun with it, but I don't feel like it's anything big or epic because at the end, the worst, best, whatever, it's Two-Face is back. But he's already back. So I just don't like it. I get bored with it. And the idea of setting it up with the white church of, hey, now we have to go see this. You already seem to be, Christian Ward's already bored with doing cases. So now it's just, let's go find Scarface. You don't even get, Westler. You don't even get we were saying the idea maybe he would do the beat, but we don't even get him.
No, we don't have Scarface talking at all. There is no ventriloquist. It's just Baby Doll with her new beau Scarface sitting on the couch watching old TV.
So, I mean, obviously the clever thing he's trying to do is with Two-Face or whatever, but you got to do something with the story to make me like, okay, that's cool. We haven't seen ventriloquist in a while, or you're doing this or that. It just, and then Baby Doll, again, I could care less.
I like seeing Baby Doll.
Yeah, but again, it's more of a cartoon thing that I have no reference to, so I really don't care, and I kind of like comics. But yeah, by the end, it's mid to me. It's nothing. It's nothing that I would say is horrible, but it's definitely not anything that I would ever buy on my own. If we weren't talking about it, I'd never freaking read another page. It's just as boring to me overall. It doesn't seem to be. And we talk about the idea, and I'll say, like, after this, none of this is going to matter. And then we can fight. And then somehow something will come up, and they're like, hey, there's the pen. You'll yell at me that it did. But this is just, again, it's not going to matter. It's not, it's just going to be just another, that crazy book.
But right now, I'm enjoying the ride that I'm on so far.
I did say, I think he, as a writer, he's a good artist, is what I say all the time, because that's what he usually is. But what would you give this?
I think the art is fun in this issue. It's not the best art you've ever seen, and I'm enjoying the Two-Face story, especially going up to this Baby Doll Scarface stuff. There's stuff that you never really get to see anywhere else. I'm enjoying, Cantwell kind of stepping up as this new character, Two-Face's assistant, and, the new character in Doubt and stuff like that, the Shadow Hand. There's these interesting things that I want to see where we go with this weird little series that we have of Two-Face. And the end, I'm telling you, that ending was I thought it was really good for what they were doing, the way everything played out panel to panel with the monologue that was going on. So I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a 3.5. I don't even, Lake Cantwell does nothing. She's just there because Two-Face can't really do a lot of, even that idea, we're going to go into the bar and I should have come myself, but I get the info. And at one point, you end up where the lady, the bartender, she says, oh man, it's Baby Doll. All Harvey says is, Baby Doll? That doesn't make any sense. And she goes, hey, get the hell out of my bar, you bitch. I'm like, why are you so angry at him?
He was just beating people up before that.
But he stopped, and that's just this thing. But he ends up where I don't believe it, Baby Doll. Doesn't make any sense. And he actually is looking with his hands up in the air, looks very confused, almost like he looks kind of cute. He's like,
well, again, it doesn't make sense for Baby Doll to do this, and we find out by the end she's been manipulated to do it.
He says that, and then Lake says, hey, who's Baby Doll? And then this lady, listen, Mr. Big Time, I don't give two turds if you believe me. I'm like, he's not saying it like that. He's saying, holy crap, that doesn't make much sense. A weird play. And
look at you bringing your supervillain shit in here. Not on my watch, not on Wendy's watch.
That was if you're already over that, if you're sitting down, it's because of Lake or whatever. But the idea where she was even manipulated. You're not going to be able to keep secrets. I wanted that extra caveat. And if they ask you, be a bitch. That's what I thought happened with Doubt. I doubt you won't be a bitch because you look like... No, she's just going over the top and says, you said, you don't bring your supervillain shit. Like, that was 10 minutes ago. He's just
You're not the type of clientele we serve at Noonan's.
You just ended up saying... And that's the other thing. What he did, that's Tuesday afternoon, which is also amateur night on the stripper pole. But you end up where all that going on, it just ended up because the scene has to end. And then everybody's pissed off and wanting to leave. He's like, Jesus Christ, I just said baby doll was a weird thing. But they go on. Again, what I can say to make
Cantwell as well, the idea she is the linchpin to Two-Face, coming over in this whole thing, not letting Big Bad Harv out, because while he can say, I doubt you can do this, disarm you, do whatever he needs to do by saying, I doubt, she's able to turn off her hearing aids and not be affected by him.
Yeah, she ended up where she even said, man, his voice, and that kind of sets it up. So that's okay. I forgot she was deaf, Eric. I'm colorblind. So when you end up doing it, I'll give it one thing, though. It is a quirky book. It is like a book that you could say, well, it's doing something. It's kind of wacky and going with the deal. I'm just not interested in it overall. And I think that it's kind of, I worry for you, Eric. I always do. I worry that when you end up and you're like, okay, there's this, you really want to pump it up. And then at the end, when it's nothing, I imagine you're just there on the stoop with that suitcase. I
don't know. I'm still enjoying the ride so far. It doesn't mean it has to be great by the end.
Yeah, I'm telling you, even that, like, you were wondering, like, oh my God, who the Shadow Hand is, name them. Because I don't doubt. That's who I know anymore. I can't remember one fucking guy from them. Yeah, Falseface. So there you go. You got two of like the six. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Well, the thing is,
a lot of the Shadow Hand were new characters, so I don't know them completely off the top of my head.
It was just like the idea, even that.
And White Rabbit.
Again, that's with the Shadow Hand, that wasn't anything of the big wow thing that Christian Ward's giving you. It's the idea of Two-Face. Now, we get that. We're halfway through. So what's the next thing would be the idea of why they're doing it, and we'll see if it makes sense. So we'll see by the end. But that is it for the first section of books. You're a little more positive than me. I could say as always, but I won't say that. But we still have three more. We're halfway done the plethora.
You do know that Two-Face is a 12-issue maxi.
Is it 12? Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm not gonna last. It's 12 issues. This bullshit is 12. So you actually revealed the big bads of the Shadow Hand in like the second issue of 12. This book sucks. I'm down to a 1. It's not even quirky anymore. I was hoping to God that it was 3 issues because I don't want to talk about it anymore. But we'll see. Maybe something will happen. But I have a feeling it's going to be a long road to nowhere is what we're heading for. But we'll see. We'll see. I would love that. I don't think it was in the top 50. And I wouldn't expect this book to be in the top 50 in sales. But
Batman was barely in the top 50.
I'm interested to see where it might be. And also, I'm looking, not that the reviews mean anything, because I know that probably Geek Dad gave it a 9.5. Everything this week ended up with that score. But see if like some of the usual suspects there, because there it is. And I think it's one of those where you play off that play of like, it's mysterious, so you don't want to look dumb or whatever. But you do have a 8.5. It's all the crazy ass people. All that Geek Dad with a 9.5, Nerd Edition of a 10. Really? It's a crime thriller, he says it is. It's not. So stop it. Now, also, this is the idea, too.
It might be if you hear that Saw music in your head.
Yeah, and no, that's just like a character moment. But the idea of adding depth to Harvey Dent, the depth was there. You actually got rid of a lot of depth to get to this. And don't give me that bullshit. So, this is Geek Dad said, I never thought he'd have a solo title. Oh, Geek Dad, you didn't think that, did you? All right, we're done with the first section. But a lot of people, they got great reviews. Sure. I think that it's overrated. 9.2, please with that. And then they're like, CJ Ward, CJ. I don't like the way they said that.
Were you desperately just looking for a like-minded individual?
Yeah, I know where they are. They're listening. It's all going in their ears. But people have their own opinion. That's fine. It's wrong, but that's fine, Eric. But even you aren't going to give it a 10 for crying out loud.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. The twice was a visible 100 miles away, okay? I still like it. Cool art. That's from George, Eric. I think George got hit in the head. I don't even know what what was he saying? The twist, I think, was what he said.
The fact that you're still on this makes me think that you might got hit in the head.
Well, maybe. I want to get the timing up, but that's it. I could always edit this out, but that's it for this section of books. This was the better section, I would say. So, hold on to your hats. But we'll be back with the next section of books in a minute or so.
We built the future, crafted the light, a system to restore what's been lost in the fights. Rewind the power up, bring it all back. But some of them, they don't want what they lack. We've got the cure, we've got the key to restore the broken, set the heroes free. But not every soul is ready to rise. Some prefer to fall rather than the prize. You can run, but you can't hide. The power's yours, but it's your pride. With a spark, the power gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter. With a cure, with a spark that feeds the fire. But only you can choose to rise higher. You can fight, but your world gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter. Ryan and Ray, they've come too far. Building the future, reaching for stars. But Captain Atom, he stands in defiance, refusing the gift, breaking the silence. We've got the answer, the way to repair. But some would rather live with despair. Size doesn't matter, they say with the sneer. But in the end, it will all be clear. You can run, but you can't hide. The power's yours, but it's your pride. With a spark, the power gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter. With a cure, with a spark that feeds the fire. But only you can choose to rise higher. You can fight, but your world gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter. You can run, but you can't hide. The power's yours, but it's your pride. With a spark, the power gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter. With a cure, with a spark that feeds the fire. But only you can choose to rise higher. You can fight, but your world gonna shatter. When it's atomic, size doesn't matter.
Eric, as I heard that, I'm going to have a little fade out there at the very end. But as I've learned, size always does matter. So that song's a lie.
So sorry for you.
It is a lie. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you're too big, right? Said nobody ever.
Jim.
Here we are. And yes, there's another Eric banger. As Jenny would normally say, but you don't like Blackpink, so I won't put that on there.
I can't say that I don't like them. I just don't know them.
Have you heard APT? I bet you've heard the song that I ended up telling you way before it became huge, that it would be huge. I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know when
I would have listened to it.
On videos, if you've seen any sort of videos or stuff that has music behind it, it's a big deal. You just wouldn't know what it was because you're not in the know. Nope. Luke Hollywood said, I haven't heard that song. I played it to him. He's like, oh, God, I hear that song every day. Like you did. You are right. But here we are with some books. We have 3 more books left, each one greater than the next. You laughed after I ended up hitting the deal and saying, how could this next section be worse? You hated every book. Well, we'll see. We shall see, Eric, because we're going to start with what ends up being, I believe, the start of the second section because of the song, not because of the quality. But what are we starting with there?
Justice League, The Atom Project #2, written by Ryan Parrott and John Ridley, with art by Mike Perkins, Adriana Lucas, and Wes Abbott. And really the reason I started this section off with this is because it has Justice League in the title.
Oh, there you go. It has that. That's true.
But we were on hot pursuit of Captain Atom, who in the previous issue was taken off with not only his powers, but a bunch of other stolen powers he's taken from the Atom Project, while Ryan and Ray are trying to track him down with the U.S. military.
Yeah, this book isn't great. It's one of those where I thought right away it's going to have some problems, getting an audience. And boy, I don't think anybody's.
That's why you stick Justice League on the title.
Yeah, well, even with that, I don't think many people are going. And I think that even in the sales, when we mention sales, I know the idea that it's not real solid numbers. These are numbers from very limited stores. You can kind of use them as kind of like hey, that might be a trend or something like that. I believe the first issue was like 180. That's a #1. So right away, it's not going to be doing great. It's one of those, it's going to end up ending. I don't think anybody's going to be reading it by the end except me and you. And that gets depressing. But I had problems. Of all the issues of reading today, and even Absolute Superman and the Birds of Prey, everything that we've done so far, boy, this was a slog to get through. I kept checking the page count. It felt like it was just going on forever. Because you're just, in books where I do complain a lot, Eric, that's just a side comment. I do complain, but I complain a lot about books that end up just giving you a lot of people yelling at each other, a lot of people talking. And that's what it seems like a lot of times. This is just yelling about, this and the government and this and Captain Atom. And it's just, I don't have an in. The idea of Ray.
My biggest problem with this issue so far is it seems like Ray is back to a pseudo-normal self.
Yeah,
not
I
his
told you.
megalomaniacal version that we had in the previous issue who didn't care about anything but science.
Yeah, and so that seemed off. Now, it is Ryan Parrott and John Ridley. So is it that Ryan Parrott read the first, and this is John Ridley, or did they go back and forth as it seems, whatever? And maybe it will be the idea of being a schizophrenic book because, boy, in that first issue, you had theories and you were going with that play of...
None of those theories played out here at all because we didn't do anything with any of that.
And again, that's, you name the signal. That's one thing, but I always worry.
I speak for Green Arrow fans,
and
too.
Why I worry, I don't think that you're a dummy, Eric. I may tell you that.
Yes, and other people.
What I do explain, though, and I will explain to other people, and I've said it to you, even when I get angry and I'm yelling at you, when you come up with some theories and things like that, they are a lot of times very hopeful. Okay, this will make sense. Even this Two-Face that we just did in the last section. The idea, though, is you're really counting on and trusting these writers to be good enough to do that, and it rarely ever happens. Rarely because they're not that good. They end up not having that in mind. It ends up being snafu. They ended up not knowing the character. They end up knowing it from something else. You even said we'll be talking about JSA, and you had a problem with Obsidian of what was going on. But then we see that some things work out, some things don't. But the idea of some of these writers where I've read John Ridley's stuff, and most of it doesn't end up well. So the idea of trusting him to make it this big thing that he's setting up, I'll never do that. That's where you're more hopeful. So when you get into this issue, though, I was just bored. I'm
just really curious to find out what it is that Ray Palmer is doing with the Atom Project that has got Captain Atom so freaking on edge to the point where he's stealing powers and evading the Justice League and the U.S. military. So that, not only so he can have the powers, like it seemed that Ray did previously in the other issue, it seems that he wants to go to Dr. Ellsworth, who helped, Dr. Megala and other people who formed, the Captain Atom Project to make him who he is now, to help him destroy these powers so nobody can have them. So that, I'm telling you, the idea that this is his motive lets me think that, okay, maybe there is still something that we just didn't get to see this issue, that there is something wrong with Ray Palmer.
No, you say with Ray, but you also have this idea of destroying powers is so beyond, because they're not even all just, these are other people's powers as well.
Oh, he's got a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. In the
previous issue we talked about,
just not right.
When Ray Palmer confronted Captain Atom, with the U.S. military, it looked like he was flying. It doesn't seem like a Ray Palmer thing to have going on, that he was flying right there. So I'm curious, is Ray dabbing into his own collection right now and gathering up some superpowers of his own? He's tired of being a small man.
Okay, and so there you go. In the deal, he's not thinking small anymore. You end up where we talk Tate Bramall and the Batgirl deal, where, hey, everybody, you got to read this, but what are you doing to get people excited? And that could end up ending at 6, whatever. But this Now, this isn't a 12-issue maxi, is it? Because if it is, I'm
this is
turning
6
everything
issues.
off and going upstairs. So this is 6 issues. Like, when do you get to, like, the idea of at the end, like how you're saying, say it is Ray and he's using powers, and this and all this bad stuff, and this is corrupting him and whatnot. That, in my mind, isn't something you reveal in the last panel of the last issue.
Unless you're setting something up.
Yeah, but again, you're setting something up where? Because this book
Maybe
is
a big
not,
event where Ray Palmer's the big bad.
Yeah, again, the big event coming up is a Superman thing, and that's what's been announced. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a Ray Palmer thing there. You want to set
maybe
up
another
something.
Adam Project 6-issue mini.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is DC are a bunch
The
of
Adam
morons.
Continuum.
You'll have that, and it's, back to the small. I don't know.
Back to the small. That's what you got. This is why you don't
How
write
about
for
this?
DC.
The Atom, a little problem. That'd be pretty good. But the idea, again,
Little man, big problem.
You can't go through a 6-issue slog to then set up the next 6-issue
Big trouble
slog.
with Little Adam.
That would be pretty good. How about this? Just the Atom. Size does matter. We'll just go with your son. That'd be pretty cool. But the idea of going with that, like in my mind, if that's the case, like right now, first off, you want to push, it kind of seems like it's supposed to be an Atom book, Captain Atom. But if you're doing this Ray Palmer deal, that's a huge thing. You can't wait too long. That's what would get people to read it. You can't do that at the end. So we'll see. But boy, the pacing in this,
even the idea that we talked about in the previous issue, if you are giving this heel swerve to Ray Palmer for whatever reason you're doing, I just don't think that.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'd be interested to see where it goes and how it became something if we are going to go that direction. If it means nothing in the end, obviously this feels like a strange thing to do. But I'm afraid though that the Ray has had such a little presence in DC Comics for the last 15 years or so that people would read that. I'm saying people would read this and not realize anything's wrong.
And I'm telling you, the way that this plays out, that's why you have to, this reveal and this twist and this wow moment, it's not going to be that much
but
of
again,
a
it's
you got to do it
speculation
quick.
if that is the case.
And I'm saying, if it is, you have to get this out and about so they can deal with it. But also, that's the thing. If that was 2 issues in, there hasn't really been a thing where you end up having Ryan say, "You're not right. What's going on?" You seem
he's
a little
asking some questions, about
they were
things.
more asking to Ryan. Like Ryan was, it's weird. Like you would end up where somebody would say, "Hey Ryan, what's up with Ray?" And he'd say, "I don't know. I think he's just stressed." You'd have something, some little deal. I just think this is how they're writing them.
Even the idea when we are going microscopic at this one point in time, so Ray and Ryan can get a trace of the Speed Force energy that Captain Atom left behind as he zoomed off to escape, custody. They are talking in this whole small escape, the idea where Ryan is upset about what's going on with Nathaniel Adam, and the Ray is talking about Captain Atom and all these other things, and not seeing him as a person like Ryan does. So it seems a little bit like every time we see Ryan and Ray interact, Ryan is getting to the point like you're not really seeing the human aspect of this, right?
But again, I just think that I think that what you said at one point is correct. They think that he's a man of science. I don't think it's that
he was the Compassion Lantern in Blackest Night.
I bet you neither of them know that. I'm telling you, and these editors know shit about shit anymore.
With the idea of continuity and where we come from the New 52, because a lot of characters still have their New 52 continuity, and that's all they have. Like a Shazam, an Aquaman, even a Jason Todd, for the most part, has like a new altered origin from the New 52. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense to the old continuity if you really put a microscope under it. And I have no idea if Ray Palmer went through the idea of Jean Loring, his ex-wife, killing a bunch of people during Identity Crisis, becoming Eclipso, and everything that he lost during the 2000s.
In my mind, and again, this is a trust thing and whatnot. I would think that for the most part of what we're reading now, and we could look at the editors, see what other books they do and whatnot, which would probably be something. But the idea where we have rarely, if at all, have said, "Oh my God, that is really smart with the continuity. Oh my God, they did this." Most of the time we say, that's bullshit. They don't do this. Even the Two-Face book, you have to end up saying at one point, even you liking it, saying it just completely threw the recent thing of the
my biggest disappointment in the first issue.
And so I would never think that, oh my God, they're playing it smart with a continuity that nobody knows, but they're going to keep it close to the chest here. I just think that this is what they think the character is somehow, and they want to play off, because also what we go with a lot of times is when you have a character and you have two characters, you want to elevate one or whatever, you always make the one where I think that what they want to play out is, well, we'll get like a blue and gold type thing where, Ryan, he's younger, so he's the the guy who's fun and he likes the humanity, but there's the old stodgy professor man. But that's not the character. It's not the character, and it feels off. It feels off. And also,
he's not psychotic, Dr. Will Magnus.
Yeah, and so what I would also have expected, again, even when next issue, 2 issues from now, they reveal, oh my God, Ray has all these powers he's gotten. I still think that you failed at a point, because why aren't we seeing? You think, again, is the flying that he had somebody's, or was that just a fuck up? Because right now I think
not
it's
even a fuck
up.
up, because even the idea where he has a new costume, both him and Ryan both have new costumes for this arc. Ever since Absolute Power happened, we put them in these new outfits, and I don't know if the idea is we're going to make him like the Ray Palmer that we had in the Arrowverse TV shows, who has like a pretty much an Iron Man with his flight capabilities.
Again, you may, and that might spell out the whole play. Again, I get mad at the idea, I've already said it tonight, of they don't know comics. They're just going what they can watch easily on a show, and live action show, even worse in my mind, and that might be it. It might just be that, but that throws everything off of us trying to figure out stuff. But
agreed.
If it is the powers, and again, that's something kind of cool. The idea that Captain Atom, they're taking him, he's upset, and then you find out that Ray actually isn't really, like, he's not altruistically trying to save it.
There is
a
reason that Captain Atom has stolen these powers and wants them destroyed.
Yeah, I just think that it's one of those of, you don't have the right to do this. It's not, because I think at this point, again, you would have had some little thing. You got to play along, and it would have been something that would have been really cool. They're fighting this bear. Or even the idea when they go in the microverse and they end up finding the Speed Force. There's a dribble drabble of the Speed Force. And then Ray says, we don't need to talk about, because he actually is using some Speed Force as well and doesn't want, or when this bear, when you're not looking or something happens, all of a sudden,
and when you keep talking about this bear, the idea that a grizzly bear in Canada somehow got Captain Atom's powers.
And
it's a weird part of this book.
That just makes me like, really? Like, that's what we're doing?
But the idea that we are getting Nathaniel Adams' power back, we have Trace's power signature to a grizzly bear in Canada, and we're going to get it back. But throughout the series, because we have our present day stuff where Captain Atom is on the run, but we keep jumping back weeks before to the idea where we're doing tests on Captain Atom, see what's going on, trying to get the idea of the power stabilizer working, because even at one point we see Atom Smasher, who for some reason through the different trials and tests of the power stabilizer that was created have turned him into a monstrosity. Obviously, he might have gotten better because we saw in Justice League him actually getting his powers back, and he didn't look like an abomination.
No, but that's what I think the play, and it really does spell out the idea of, hey, don't trust them. And I do think it's the idea of, you're trying to do good, but you're really hurting people, but you don't care. It's all about the power. I think that that's what's Captain Atom's deal. But in that, you say they're fighting the bear, and at one point, suddenly, you have Ray, and lightning bolts come out of his heat vision, like something that is not him, but nobody else sees it but us, and we're like, oh shit, what was that? Like, that you would expect something like that in 2 issues to give you a little hint. The idea of going with a character a lot of people don't know personally, I'll say, the idea of, oh man, a science guy, but he is a nice guy. That's almost too deep a dive, and I don't think they're going that deep when they might be also going TV show with the suits. I don't know. I think that you're looking and hoping that there's something bigger, and I just think this book is a slog. And one of the things, if you do page, and I said this when a lot of times where you go through issues, and we're doing it digitally, obviously, and we go through, and you go, and I'm telling you, it's like a lot of faces talking. Even when you go, the coolest thing about the Atom, I know you probably disagree because you hate things, but I know you hate things like the microverse, but that's cool. Like, that should be the cool thing. They go in the microverse to just talk. You have the backgrounds, but you don't do anything.
Ourselves down. It's not exactly the microverse.
Well, they're there in it. It says the microbial plane, right? You're there. And it ends up where it's just like, it looks more like a Flash book, unfortunately, with that fucking cosmic horror. But really, they're just there with so many word bubbles. They're just there talking at a different location. You don't even get the wow factor of their power and what they do. It just ends up,
they
go down there to talk.
Because we know that the Atoms are going after Captain Atom because he is on the run with these powers. We know that the military is going to get involved. They want to fucking put a stop to Captain Atom because Ray Palmer and the military, they can't make Captain Atom do anything at this point, to the point where they're going to unleash Major Force on his ass, which is very sad for one thing, because I thought that was going to be this issue, but it's a cliffhanger that Major Force will be unleashed on Captain Atom, which should be an awesome brawl, especially now that Captain Atom has all of these extra powers on top of what he had before. But on top of that, it looks like the Atoms aren't going to be doing things to actually capture Captain Atom anymore, because with the Speed Force signature, they're going to call up old Wally West, and it looks like he might be in this book as well.
Yeah, and I
unless
don't
they
know.
just say, "Hey, can you pick up anything?" And if you do, give us a call.
I'm telling you, even at a point, they're like, "Oh, maybe." They almost like act like he's an asshole. Like I swear to God, I want to find the spot. It's like, yeah, if he could get out of that Speed Force bullshit for a little. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
He's
deal?
not wrong. They read the freaking Flash run.
Well, no, they're like, actually, Ryan's like, I don't know what the hell that guy's doing. I saw a Pilgrim and bullshit.
His kid's got homunculi coming out of his
I
belly
don't know.
button.
You see there, actually, Ryan's like, I still can't get over that Jay was with the shirtless deal and then the what's it called? The room
Boiler
there.
room.
The boiler room. I'm not going down there. But yeah, even that, they almost set up that the idea that Wally might be too busy. So we'll just get word. Yeah, he said that this. Just the whole idea of this is a lot of just standing around. And when you get to the big scene is this crazy bear.
That's the worst scene in the book, which is sad.
Captain Atom bear.
Because we're fighting a Captain Atom-powered bear, and we have to hook the stabilizer up and make sure that we attach it to this bear and have Captain Atom hold on with all his might so the stabilizer works and the bear is returned to normal and Captain Atom gets his powers back, which we already know happened because this is in the past when this happened. So the idea of the big wow factor is, hey, everybody, I don't know if you know this, but when the powers went wonky and went to different people, Captain Atom's powers, he went to a bear. And we had to fight a Captain Atom bear for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and
but then it turned out okay.
I'm sitting there with this, and I'm
I
like,
know, it was in the past.
You have this deal with the bear, and it could be any mammal. I'm like, oh, God, this really throws things out of whack. And then the idea that it makes other things that I don't think are going to be great, but that, back to Smallville with Fire and Ice, like, they just got lucky. They just swapped powers. Like, there isn't, like, the goddamn Captain Atom gets a bear.
You're going to have a weird,
Mara gets Aquaman.
Cow
you know
out
what I mean? Yeah, that's what I was saying. Batgirl's now going to be powered up. You have this deal, and even then you have this bear. I'm like, that's not this might have looked good on paper, but this paper we're reading from, it does not.
I'm telling you, the thing is, when I first saw this bear and all shined up like he is because he has Captain Atom's powers, I thought it was a polar bear at first, and I thought for a brief second, you and I were talking about Jeff Lemire on the JSA book, and back when he was doing the JLU book, he created this character for Future's End, a villain to go up against this created character Equinox, and we only got it for a few panels. And this character was called Polargeist, and he was a cybernetic old man who rode on top of a cybernetic fucking polar bear. And I'm like, is this Polargeist coming out?
You wanted to message Jeff Lemire and say, what's up with Polargeist? It was just a Captain
Atom bear, and I'm like, where's Polargeist?
Where is it a weird play? And you can correct me because I'm not really remembering a lot, Eric, from even today. But the idea of, where is it where we get that story? Because remember, I thought that one kid had Captain Atom's power, so that was, it's all new to me. But the idea of, what if Lex Luthor gets Captain Atom's power? What if Mirror Master gets Flash's power? Like,
what if?
Do something interesting.
What if, Jim?
Do something interesting, not a bear. They're there with a bear, and we know that nothing happens
Jim,
anyway.
Do you not understand that Black Canary has heat vision?
I do understand that. At least we actually saw Plastic Man phasing a little more. But even then, it was a teammate. It's a bear. Like, the idea, it almost feels like they
Phantom Girl was all stretchy and gross.
I'm swear to God, I thought it was a Mudface deal. You end up where all of a sudden they look over at Captain Atom and he's like, well, I was horny one weekend. Where's the connection with everybody else has a connection. It's a bear. And then they go, and seriously, I know that this would be something, but they're fighting a Captain Atom bear. Don't you harm the bears. I'm like, you got to put some things away for a bit and try to do something here.
If I can.
You stop that up, and that's what I think Captain Atom was doing. I don't think he's spelling out. I think you need a connection somehow. But even then, where's the story where you get Bruno Mannheim, who's decided, oh, shit, these powers are all wonky, whatever. I'm going to go round people up on the bad side. Or I'm going to end up trying to do this. Or I got powers.
He's going legit in Star City right now.
Well, never according to Green Arrow. He was beating the crap out of him.
Look, it's not ethically right, but he was going legit.
Again, so in that, though, where is the interesting story of somebody who really shouldn't get the power? Or like we said at one point, some of these powers aren't swapped out. Some of them activated a meta gene and they end up getting powers. Where are the villains? Where are the things now? But we're almost at a point where it seems like these books are going to solve the problems and then they're gone. And all we're getting are bear. Fire and ice. Oh my God, Eric. Fire has ice powers. Ice has say, well, you got your peanut butter and my fucking chocolate. And then you have Mara doesn't have powers that she gave or got. Aquaman gets them. Like, it's so lame.
Think
do
the Atom
something
Project's going to
better.
fix Aquaman, or is Mara going to be like, no, the king needs that shit?
Probably that. And then people are going to lose their fucking minds.
Probably.
They will lose their
But no,
minds.
you don't realize when they switch it back to Mara, it also activates Aquaman's hidden water-bending, like Metagene.
Seriously, I'm sitting here and I'm hoping to God that what really happens then is somebody like a Cy Spurrier actually gets the power of Grant Morrison's writing that he's desperately trying to get. Like, do that, have those powers swap, but you end up with all this shit. It's just nonsense.
Look, your big action scene of the book is the Atoms and Captain Atom fighting a Captain Atom up bear. Captain Atom eventually gets his powers back, which we know because this is in the past. We've already seen what the future looks like. But the interesting parts of this book are the military going after Captain Atom.
That's so boring.
The Atom Project going after Captain Atom, while Captain Atom wants to destroy the powers that he's collected, and we need to know why he wants them destroyed. What is he trying to keep these? Like, who is he trying to keep these powers from?
And that's the weird
and
thing.
Why?
I think that at the end, where we think that this is a crazy deal, I think that what's going to happen, because even then when they're going and you have, Captain Atom, hey, what's up? You were one of these scientists that did this. No, I'm on up and up, and I want this and what. It's going to be that that Ray thinks that somebody's going to break and grab these powers to make weapons, and he's going to be keeping them aside. I just think that that's all it is. The way that it's spelling out. But even then, you end up getting 2-3 pages of this talking heads of just things I don't care about. Adam's there. You have the thing of like, hey there, General Ealing. It's like, hey, we're going to do this, and why are we doing that? I'm like, I don't care. It's boring. It's boring as hell. It's just heads in each panel.
We also see the idea that Justice League are working with the military with a not very good connection.
Yeah, even that, I don't care. That's they don't trust beyond each the deal. Other. That's not fun to me. That's always been a thing. We always had liaisons because of that. I don't need that. At points in books, like that Superman Unchained.
It's a tenuous relationship.
It was Sam Lane and all that. But again, you're dealing with a lot of, and again, with this, I have found out, as well as you, and I found out more and more now, I don't know that many people read Absolute Power. I'm running into so many people that not many, when I asked them, they didn't read Absolute. So if you didn't, this book is totally like nothing. You wouldn't even be involved because of the play. And there's no way for me to say, oh, this is cool because, they fought a Captain Atom bear. And
it's
the
worst
idea,
part
again,
of the book. Even
if I said, like, they're like, oh, Ray Palmer's in it, either I'm going to say one of two things. He doesn't seem like they're writing him right, or they might have a thing where he's kind of gone evil. Either or, a fan of the character isn't really going to want to read that. So,
I kind of want to find out why.
Yeah, but we're here, already doing it now. We want to know why, but I don't see any sort of entry thing of this book. I don't even think people who read Absolute Power really care that much about these power swaps. It was just like Lazarus Reign and the shit that we got
very
from
disappointing.
there. The only thing that we really got in my mind that continued from Lazarus Reign is Mercy Graves' fucking Mega Man arm. We're not, so this will just be the same. It'll just disappear.
What are you talking about? Didn't Power Girl get her freaking powers from Lazarus Reign?
Yeah, and that disappeared. She's not reading minds anymore.
She's doing all that shit. She chooses not to.
She did use one of those punching America Chavez power portal deals, but that gets pushed aside. Her power now is to forget and remember, and now she's got money, Karen Starr, and then later, in a way, in the new solicits, Karen Starr actually shows up to then go, and I know that she's going to fuck shit up. It's not going to be what you think it is.
Actually, the thing is, that could be. I don't know the solicits. I don't know what you read.
It's not going to end up being what you think.
You could have the Earth to Karen Starr.
I know it's not going to, because she's a villain. She ends up coming to cause problems or something.
Oh, you know what it feels like? The idea, if they're going to use Power Girl as a villain like that, I forget what her character's name was, but they introduced her in the Justice League Unlimited.
Keep going. It's all cartoons and shit.
As a bad guy.
Ay. Again, this is the idea.
A clone.
If you end up and it is true, a lot of the people that they grab, even say Jeremy Adams, he is from the animated deal, but it just shows me the idea. I can't sit through an episode of shit, so I can't say that, it's lazy doing that, but it is a lot easier watching 20-minute show than reading a bunch of back issues, and I think that's all they're doing. I really do.
Well, not only that, a lot of these things at this point in time are iconic and things that fans love.
Yeah, but why repeat the exact same thing? I mean, if that's what we're getting in that
it's a nostalgia hype. It's a nod to something that you yourself loved and made you a fan of, like the superhero, the company, whatever.
That's what is the Force Awakens? What do they criticize it for now?
It was my favorite one.
Because the others sucked. And I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing Limbo with this stuff. That Last Jedi. Speaking of which, anybody who reads Marvel, don't get that fucking later legacy deal. It's a Kylo Ren. unless you want to be reminded of why you hate Kylo, because he's a whiny bitch, Eric. But at the end, again, it's just, you're more interested in these characters. I'm in an entry deal again of wanting to be interested, and it is boring as hell. And I will tell you, I don't like Mike Perkins' art. I never have, because I think it is boring. It ends up being in things like that where you have a lot of talking heads with shadows, and it just does.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Mike Perkins fan for this art.
I don't like
either.
It just bores me every time I see it. It bores the shit out of me. But what would you give this?
Ultimately, I would give this a 6 out of 10. I think the parts with the idea of what, Nathaniel Adams is doing, Captain Atom, I find it really intriguing. I want to know what's going on with the Atoms. The idea of getting everybody their powers back, I'm all for that. But like, when your big action scene is the Captain Atom up there, it feels like we just missed a step here and you're doing some crazy shit when you could have done some cool shit.
Yeah. I again, some of the things that when I read it, what I think about isn't just if I like it, whatnot. It's the idea of it's all in. You want to get new readers. You want to go, this is not going to be anybody's first book. I don't think anybody's running to say, oh my God, I haven't read DC in 10 years. I need to read this. And if they do, I think that it goes with what I say is maybe my mantra. You got to make the characters cool, especially characters that haven't been around. You want to be able to say to somebody, oh my God, you got to read this Captain. It is fucking insane. It's that. It's not that. It seems like, again, John Ridley and Ryan, but they're trying to be smarter than they need to be in a stage of this DC where you just want to get writers, readers. You just want to get.
Well, you might get something really cool to impress people when Major Force goes up against Captain Atom in the next issue.
But we're halfway through, and even then, I'm telling you, it might. But again, I don't like the art. But the idea of me saying to what we want to get new readers, get this, Captain Atom and Major Force, they're battling out. They'd be like, who?
That's not your. I'm saying that they don't know Captain Atom. What's DC going to do?
Well, that's the thing. You're 2 issues in, then 3 issues in. That's what this book should be. This book should be showing you why you should want to know who Captain Atom is, and it's not. It's a mess in my mind. And everything that we keep saying is, I hope it's this, I hope we see that, and I just think it's going to end, and they're just going to, the powers are back, or A just didn't want the military to get them and stuff like that. And then even jumping through time. You said it made the one action scene not even matter, because we know it.
We know the outcome. Yeah.
We knew it happened. So, and again, if it's old heads like you, that's what this book is definitely for. But were they reading Absolute Power? This power change. I think it fails on a lot of levels. But I'm going to give it. I'm a little more positive than I told you at the bit. I'm a 3.
Not a 1.
No,
okay.
A 3. A 3 out of 10. I don't even know why. I'm just going to give it a 3. It's just everything about it. I hated as I was reading it. It just bored me. I could barely get through it. It was the book that I had struggled with. But we'll move on to the next book, which is an odd book anyway. But what is that?
JSA number 4, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Joey Vasquez, Luis Guerrero, and Steve Wands. And we start this issue off with the idea that Beth Chapel, Dr. Midnight, has been kidnapped by the ISA and is being safeguarded by none other than Solomon Grundy himself. And we get a new art style in this, and I have to say that I wasn't a huge fan of what this book looked like previously. I kind of hope it stays looking like this. It's a more cartoony style, but it's way more fun to read in my mind.
I still think that, and I told you that that's what it was. I think that this style definitely would go with like a Blue Beetle, a blue and gold, and that it'll work. It works with this. It's kind of a shock when you go from one issue to the other. And I do think this might be the best because you get some answers. But here's the thing, and this, I love Jeff Lemire. So, and I want to like this, but I'm still in the same boat. What I'm actually, it's not just the idea of making characters cool. It's the idea that even this series starting out, why are they making us work to like it? Like the idea that this book started, that first issue was very odd. It didn't set up the team. If you didn't know the characters, it's not really good. Then the second issue went back in time to show what the deal. And it does feel at this point like there's a lot of work to be done to enjoy it, that eventually it may, I don't know that it'll pay off, but it will end up getting better as the story gets more easily, told or whatever. It just feels like at the beginnings of some of these, like that Atom Project even, it goes too far in the idea of not just leading us into something. It's just boom, and we're not going to hold your hand, but we're going to do weird things.
They're not holding your hand, and we're doing gigantic things with the ISA that you will not fully understand for a while.
That's what I'm saying, and that's basically like, why do that?
Like I'm telling you, I say giant things. We have the Injustice Society of America put together once again with all these new members, new and old actually, but the idea that they're like gathering things like the cosmic rod technology from Starman's old vault to the idea that we need the Helm of Fate, and they're even looking for the Spear Spear of Destiny from Hawkman's collection to build or do something. I'm like, you have to assume with all these things, it's called Be Big. You have no idea.
No, and so this is where I was kind of talking about at the beginning of the idea of saying, hey, what book should I read? I wouldn't tell them at this moment to read JSA. Because I couldn't really, because then you get the idea of
even half the characters in the ISA that you want to obviously you want to be all in on the freaking villains as well. If you haven't been reading DC lately, you're getting a lot of new villains who just appeared in little minis and shit like that showed up during the new Golden Age.
And then some people don't know some of the characters even in the JSA. The Mad Gasser's there. It's funny, they don't do much, but
you have the JSA, but you also have Infinity Inc. jumping in, all the generations of the JSA are together, and it's a handful of people that you have to try. You have to try to do a balancing act with this. And thankfully for this issue, maybe it goes against a lot of people for what they want with a JSA book because you want the JSA. This is a Beth Chapel Dr. Midnight issue.
But the thing is, that's what I almost think that's how it should. Now we're only a couple issues in, but I appreciate this one because you do pull back you do slow it down a bit and you get more Beth Chapel. And I wish at this point, 4 issues in, we would have had more of this.
Well, again, I think that Beth Chapel needs it because this version of Dr. Midnight, even though she's been in the Stargirl TV show, what you think about when you think of Dr. Midnight, it's usually Charles McKnight or something along those lines. Beth Chapel, she's been around for 40 years at this point, but she's still a relatively, in my mind, unknown character for the persona of Dr. Midnight. So you want to feature her, you want to show what the power set is, what she does, how smart she is, what she's willing to do. And one of the things is she's blind, but she's able to see in the dark. She's got these blackout bombs to make it completely dark so she can see and nobody else can. But half the scenes where she's running around, it seems like she's able to see. And I'm that's kind of a problem.
She was just kind of running, and luckily she wasn't running to the walls like me. But it's also a cool play because in the meantime, Obsidian, he is captured, and he needs the darkness as well. So there's that play. But even then, you do get some character stuff here where before there were so many characters and everything. You ended up where almost the first 3 issues even felt like cold open. The idea of this big battle, this big thing, and now we're getting this stuff.
The Tower of Fate being driven into hell, and then there's demon battles.
Huge shit. But again, I thought that maybe in the first 6, you introduce the team, go with a couple, main characters. But even that, and one of the things, again, just as a general thing of what we talked about all tonight, the idea a lot of these books end up being the idea, and especially you want to be positive with it. But when you do, a lot of it is the hope of something happening down the line, not exactly the issue going. And I think that that's how all these writers are doing this. And we're lost in a play of, we don't know if they're writing it wrong or setting something up. And that's a weird play, especially like you said with Ray Palmer and stuff like that. But in this book, you said, again, at the beginning, was Obsidian, acting all mean and whatever because of this?
Exactly.
Did that go?
Where are we going continuity-wise? Because Jeff Lemire had been out of DC for a little bit, but where are we going continuity-wise? So the softer side of Obsidian, or are you going for the classic, just kind of rage-filled, angry Obsidian, and be you would know it if you just pick up a comic for the first time in 20 years?
And what it plays out kind of is it's not Obsidian, it's Johnny Sorrow maybe playing off a thing, but nobody recognizes. It's just
like Johnny Sorrow with a Wotan glamour put on him.
Yeah, and the idea of that we did end up saying for a while, what's Obsidian up to? What's going on with Obsidian? In fact, at some point, I'm so much of an idiot. At first, I'm like, oh, they just controlled his body. But then when you end up seeing, Johnny Sorrow, okay, what's going on? You want to, we find out. Kind of. We find out that he's in a Matrix Black Mercy type,
which is
weird
weird because he is plugged into a machine to keep him under, so we can keep Obsidian off the board while Johnny Sorrow goes in and plays Obsidian to the JSA. But the idea inside of Obsidian's mind, he's able to come and find Jakeem Thunder as well. But Jakeem is not hooked up to the same machine. Jakeem is in a coma. We don't know how or why Jakeem is still in a coma. It's something that's been done to him, but it seems like that would be more magical. This is obviously science, and I have no idea where the two should meet.
The thing in my mind when they do meet, I just thought that it was a dream in a dream, but it did seem like he kind of channeled to Jakeem, and then when Jakeem goes to use the Thunderbolt, it doesn't work because he's caught. Or maybe the idea of trapping Jakeem also in Obsidian's mind.
It's because he don't got the pen.
It's weird. But really. But it's kind of it kind of was neat, but then it doesn't make it light. You got to see more, but at least we see that Obsidian is alive. They're trying to keep him in this constant state of daylight. So there's no, but shadows, but there's always going to be shadows.
It's a constant state of daylight of the mind.
Which again, is
to
odd
keep him
because
powerless
it's still
in
just
his
of the
mind.
mind. They could just keep him in a room that's always lit, and they'd have
Which
no
I'm
problem.
telling you, even the idea of a room that's always lit, he is still connected to the Shadowlands. So the idea where we're doing this to try to keep him powerless, it feels weird because they keep just knocking him out in the mind. So I don't even understand the idea of the play that we're going to put him in a matrix where he's constantly in like the daylight, but we're also going to keep knocking him out in this matrix thing. So he's always asleep. He doesn't know what day it is, how long the time has passed, but like, why not just keep him without any kind of
the
REM?
weird play, because in that, there you go. Everybody loves REM. You end up where
Obsidian's losing his religion.
he does wake up, and that's where he's in that room with the deal. But then when he's under, I just think that they need to keep him under all the time. But then it gets
That's what I'm saying.
because it seems like they are doing that. But I don't know. The idea of him and you do see in the regular deal, I like the time. Instead of saying 7 days later, you see his facial hair. You see that things going on with that, and you do even see at one point. No, at that point, I think that's when he wakes up. I think that's him waking up in a room where they go. But then in the mind, he's also still in that hospital of the mind. I'm telling you, I think that when he's in that play with the doctor and he keeps giving him shots, I think that's in the here. I think that's in the real time deal at a hospital. But then he's in the mind later in the same day. It's wacky, but the idea that he's growing a beard and things
facial
like
hair,
that,
yeah.
I think that's real.
Because the thing is, he is still hooked up to a machine in the real world where this is not happening.
Yeah, but he's also but that's what I'm saying. In the deal, they actually do strap him down. You wouldn't have to do that of the mind. I think that's real. And then when he falls asleep, he's in the mind frame. I'm telling you, it's wacky. And that's when you see the multiple doctors and things like that. I think that's all nightmares
Agent
as
Smiths.
he's going, and he's got to fight his way out. And that's where he sees Jakeem. It is wacky, but I do think that they do have him in a room, in a bed that they keep drugging him up. I don't know why they just don't do an IV drug type
because
thing.
Because the idea, when Beth
thing.
Chapel, Dr. Midnight does find him in the ISA headquarters, he is strapped to a chair, has a whole brain gimmick going on. So it's like, this is different than what he's actually going through. It's because of this that he's experiencing the things that we saw previously.
It's a weird play of a dream and a dream and a dream. It's like Inception type deal, but even then they may have moved him to there. In the meantime, poor Solomon Grundy. That guy, he's shamed. He ends up where he's shamed.
He's got to go with Gentleman Ghost and go down to hell to try to do all the, to summon all of the undead because, Hawkman, we need that Spear of Destiny. We went through his museum in St. Roque. We didn't find no Spear of Destiny. Let's get his ass out of there, out of the lower depths of hell, and, find out what the Spear of Destiny is because we're building a big machine that, even though it looks brightly lit, Beth Chap was able to look at and say, you know what, that's some Starman technology right there. Ted Knight's all about this, whatever we're building.
Weird, right?
It's very
so
weird. Again, I think it's just an art because different scenes of this, this thing is greatly lit, but around her it seems dark. So the idea of how she's able to see what she's not seems very odd to me. But she knows whatever they're building is Ted Knight technology.
Yeah, she runs into the one room and she didn't know there were people there because she didn't stop to do. But that's okay. Yeah. You do end up, for people who don't know this Dr. Midnight, you get the idea of her. I just want more Solomon Grundy.
Of course, we always want more Solomon Grundy.
Shamed on a Thursday. Sorry, boss. But even then, when you look at all the villains and you're like, oh, some of these in the ISA are not great, but you have Mad Gasser, as we call him.
The Fog,
The Fog's there, and you can holster that gun, dude. He's just there at the table.
That's all he's got.
That's the problem. That's my point is he's so nothing that you can't let him holster it because that's all he's got. And it's just, all right, yeah,
the
Ruby
thing is,
over
too,
there.
the idea with him having his gas gun, it also has a tube that's connected to whatever is releasing the gas, right?
It's a
but the
canister,
thing is, he has to hold on to it because he really didn't think it through for the holster. The line doesn't go down that far, so he has to hold it so he doesn't look like an asshole.
It's like me with the remote control car that's not real remote.
Exactly.
It's got that deal, and you're like, oh, this sucks.
But I'm telling you, the idea of the ISA, a group that goes against the JSA, the Justice Society of America, you want them to be the big heavy hitters. Obviously, you have Wotan and Johnny Sorrow. Bringing in Scandal Savage is cool as well because I don't know what she's been doing. She has ups and downs with who she is.
What she's doing is showing off her butt cheeks, so I don't mind that.
But the idea that you have Solomon Grundy, Gentleman Ghost is fine, but when you get to things like Cobra, even the new Red Lanterns, The Fog, Dr. Elemental, it feels these new additions, I don't know why they're allowed
it's just
in or who
because you
invited
had those books. That's
you have Shadow Thief here. Even he feels weird, even though he's a big Hawkman villain, but he feels weird to be a part of the ISA in my mind.
When you have a team and you end up saying that one of the heavy hitters is Gentleman Ghost, shit has gone wrong. We like him.
Should have been Jim Craddock. How dare
I
you?
like what he said. Hey, we'll go down to the hell. And he's adjusting his fucking monocle. I'm like, now you're doing it, pal.
I just imagine he's the new Shade, and they needed to replace him. Some dude with a top hat.
Again, he has that going on, but
Look,
really,
we need a dude with a top hat. Who else we got? The Shade's
he
not
is
calling.
one of the, and they're like, is Zatanna bad yet? No. Shit.
No.
So with that, though, he is one of the, like, heavy hitters. I like the idea. They're like, what is this Dr. Doom asshole doing over here? He's like, I am Dr. Elemental. How dare you?
I have done one thing in 80 years, and it wasn't very good.
That's the thing, is what they should do down the line. They're like, so what do you want to do, Gentleman Ghost? I think we should go to hell and get things going. Hey, Dr. Elemental, what do you want to do? I think we should wait this out. And they're like, this is all he does. He just waits.
Guys, sit back. Imagine this, all right? If we use hard water vapors, we might be able to activate metagenes to make me better.
Exactly. And then they say, okay, well, why don't we get going? No. We have to wait till the year 3010. That's when we're going to end up being able to do it. That's what he did. He waited around.
This is a Beth Chapel issue. What we actually need is a Dr. Elemental issue where he realizes after absolute power, everybody's metagenes being activated. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. I just came in my pants. Now I need to study these guys to figure out how to activate my own metagenes.
Either that or like, oh shit.
I was all about these hard water vapors.
It's like, I waited all this time. He's like, now there's other hard things here, and now I'm going to write a song. And then the idea, though, is like, he really did. If you didn't read the Jay Garrick Flash book,
The Flash, yeah.
His major plan was to wait, almost the same. You like wait decades till you get the boom back so that he could use her.
It wasn't even a plan because he didn't even realize that she would come back. She came back from Orphan Island. She happened to be like, now it's Dr. Elemental's time to strike because this is the progeny of a man that I created with, like, I gave metahuman genes to. So the idea is, this one has the pure genes, and I could study her.
I was still like down in the lab with them hard water vapors.
Like you were 40 in 1940.
They really, actually, what you could have done in this, and I do think this book has so many characters, and some characters people wouldn't know, is maybe this is one of the books you can have a backup, and have a backup that ends up focusing on some of these. And if you're going to do it, you get the Mad Gasser, you get Ruby, and you get Dr. Elemental. You just throw them as one. They're like, hey, you newbies, you go do this, and they're doing bullshit or whatever. But even the idea of Johnny Sorrow hasn't been around a lot, and you're really counting on people knowing.
No, I think the only version that we've really had is the Earth 2 New 52 version of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things here that I think might be missed by some people in a time where a lot of old readers aren't reading. So I think that you need to, really nail it down. And again, another book that I said at the beginning, I can't really recommend. I don't mind it. And it's probably maybe my book of the week. I do like it. It's still a bit of a mess because you don't know what is going on and things are kind of, but it still ends up where I even sit there and say, this is kind of cool. I want to know more about what's going on, but it's still not anything I can put my thumb on to explain to somebody why they should read it. Especially not with the, it's Shazam. Something where you really say.
That's all you have to say to me.
Yeah, well, again, there's going to be some, but I'm talking new reader where they're like, well, why would I read this? There's a lot of characters. Oh, you mean like Batman and things like that? Like the Justice? No.
Do you like
characters
sand?
You never know. You like fog? Do you like that? You like a guy who's a ghost in a crazy outfit with a cape?
Come on, everybody knows Gentleman Ghost.
I love Gentleman Ghost.
I say that. No, not everybody knows Gentleman Ghost.
No, not everybody does, but the idea where if you're going to push this
now,
ISA,
Solomon Grundy, there you go.
You were going to mention Gentleman Ghost. As I said, he's one of the things. And like, okay. And there's this guy who kind of looks like
Wotan
Dr.
is
Doom.
the biggest heavy hitter, and nobody's going to know who Wotan is.
Yeah, Wotan's there. He's like, look at everything is, I don't know. It just, and also Scandal has nice butt cheeks. I do like that.
Okay.
She has that look that I like. She needs a couple more tattoos and stuff to scare me. Oh my goodness. And I was going to mention something earlier. I can't remember. I thought it was a funny joke. It slipped my mind. I might come now. It was something about one of the characters, maybe the fog. I don't know. It's not Mel Torme, by the way.
No, not the Velvet Fog.
No. So with all of that, though, it's an odd issue, but you do get Beth. You do it's funny because I want to say you find out what happened to Obsidian, as I said earlier. You kind of don't, but you get to him.
He's been taken, yeah.
And you would think that the idea, and Beth has a certain set of skills, right? Looking and going in the dark. But you end up where if she saves him, which it looks like she'll be able to.
Looking and going into the dark.
That's her skill set. That's from Taken, Eric. But it's like, I got a specific skill set. What is that?
Dr. Midnight.
Oh, I look in the dark. But you end up where that could then and should then lead to Jakeem. Now we're getting pull things together. And,
Agreed.
And then also, I mean, everybody is waiting with bated breath. Is Jade going to get with Sandy? That's
just Sand. Just call him Sand.
Also, I want to have at the point where you do have.
You don't need to go Sandy the Golden Boy on his ass.
When Obsidian comes back and he's like, "Man, thanks guys, you were." They're like, "We didn't even realize you were gone."
You were gone?
Yeah, they're like, "What happened?"
We just thought you were acting like an asshole, like usual.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people say when they listen to the podcast about you. But what would you give this?
Ultimately, I give this a 6 out of 10. I still love the JSA book. It's just that this is presented in a very odd way. I love the fact that Beth Chapel gets an issue to really focus on her, but even the way it's presented with her powers, how light everything is, she seems to be able to see when she shouldn't. It's very odd in my mind. Even the idea that we get Obsidian in this, it's very confusing of how Obsidian is presented in the dream, also connected to Jakeem, even though he's not connected to Jakeem, also to be outside of all these things. Even the way his powers work was inside the dream feel weird because he's almost has like what appears to be stretchy powers instead of shadow powers. It's presented very odd, even though I think that the art is a step up than what we had before. I think some things didn't really pan out ultimately with this. It's a weird book. I want to love it because it is a JSA, but it just doesn't seem like it's really focused right now. The greatest thing that I can say is that the ISA are up to something, and I think it's going to be big.
I think it is too. I kind of, it's one of those, I don't mind reading it. That's the best I can say this week. But reading it a couple times now and us going through it, I actually do like the art. At first, it threw me off a bit. I
really
thought it was too cartoony. The only thing that I think when I first went through and what was the deal, like you said, though, you're dealing with characters that deal in the dark. You deal with Dr. Midnight, and it is very colorful. And
it is
very
as bright as the fucking sun.
So when she is in the dark, you can barely even tell she's in the dark. So that's maybe a problem, but I do like the art, and I really like how Obsidian
her
looks
ass
in that
needed
dream.
to find her belt of blackout bombs and just bomb the shit out of the place.
So yeah, and you're getting some power sets. You're seeing some things going on and seeing some characters that, like Jakeem, we haven't really had because he's just been in a coma. So we get a slight bit of him, but I do like it. And then at the end, you do have Scandal with her boot to the neck, turning me on, Eric, to the Dr. Midnight. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm a 6. I'm a 6 with that, and I just hope that it gets a little less convoluted. That we kind of nailed, because we have, I mean, in this book, we have so many things that are going on that you could possibly go to the next issue that have nothing to do with what we want out of this one. I mean, we end up in hell. Obviously,
I can only hope that we go after Hawkman with Gentleman Ghost and Solomon Grundy.
Hawkgirl, she's down there. She went to hell, and Alan Scott's like, "See you, sayonara, sucker!" Like all that stuff going on. Stuff. And even then, it felt like this when the I Say was talking. It felt like it was beyond that, but it's not. And then you're talking the Brothers 3, and which we already saw and stuff. But it felt like they were a little step behind of what was going on. But you have a lot of working pieces. You got a lot of cogs.
A lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, you do. So we'll have to see. The Atom, thinking small. And that wasn't the deal. What's next, Eric? We have one more book left. What are we doing?
Shazam! Number 20, the penultimate issue to the series, written by Sina Grace with art by Dan McDade, Roberto Paggi, Trish Mulvihill, Matt Herms, and Troy Pateri. And here it is, folks, the issue that you've all been waiting for, the issue where John Kent gets de-aged. And boy, let me tell you, there's no reason for this issue, and all it wants to tell you is why this is a stupid idea. And the thing is, I don't care for John Kent being aged, but I'm not about to tell you how stupid it is. Like, this book seems to want to force down your throat the idea that we're doing it here so we never have to do it again, and the idea doesn't work. I'm like, you don't do that. You don't fucking throw pie in people's faces when they want something.
It's kicking them in the teeth. And it reminds me of, it reminds me of one thing. Now, you may not think it's as big, but to people who, and it's probably the issue at DC that I think is more comparable to it. It's when Marvel fucks around and, hey, one more day, everybody likes that. Nobody wants Peter to be with. And then you get these issues that are supposed to be like
Peter and Mary Jane together,
and yet they won't do it, and they end up trying to convince you that most people don't want that. Here's the thing with me and you.
Tell them I hate them.
And me and you, that you didn't like, Doc Ock, Nell, and Mary Jane and stuff. You end up all this stuff of the mind. Also, you really hate it when Gwen Stacy, when you find out that she was having kids with her. But again, this is what it feels to me.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to comics.
And that's wiped out. Nick Spencer wiped that out, so that was good. So you end up, but he wanted to change one more day. But that's what it reminds me of, because it is something that people, and they might be the most
vocal. Brand new day.
They're very vocal about the idea, oh my God, and the idea why won't you give us what we want? And at one point, DC was going, but people don't want the side issue. Oh, we'll say that this happens in this little crack in the story, and then you do that. That gets old. They want John as a kid again. Now, me and you, again, we go with the flow. We talk about these books. We talk about every book. We talked about everything every week for 10 years. You can't, and, review them even more than that. So when we go through it, we can't get stuck on things. Like I get stuck on things. Like you will say I have a vendetta, but I can't just say to you, I'm not reading this John Kent Superman book because he's not the DH and I won't read it. People will do that.
That's a stance you took there right there, Jim.
There's people who do it, but that's what they, that's their stance. So people are very, very into the deal. But at this point, and not to upset anybody, Eric, the idea, we've talked about it. I've said it to you many a time off the air. We're getting to a point where it's going to be too long a wait that you can't do it anymore anyway.
It's way too long. The thing is, I don't want to be there kicking people in the teeth saying your idea is stupid.
Because I'm not saying they're stupid. That's the thing. No. I know what they want, but at a point...
Exactly. But when you have a situation in this issue where the only person that John Kent DH wants to go to is Damian Wayne to do like a little Super Sons reunion, and Damian says, we're too old for this shit, I sadly have to agree with Damian Wayne. Even though it doesn't make sense for this issue for what's going on, it's like, but I have to agree with him. I don't like it, but I have to agree with him.
And again, people will say, I don't care. And then we start talking about things about what do you do if you did really DH him? I think you have to mind wipe him too. We said for the longest time, that we thought you were going to reveal that this was Earth 3, John Kent, that came back, and it wasn't John. That you end up finding out that John himself was still there. And but again, whether or not you want something and whether or not DC are assholes for not giving it to you, because the reason why it's gone too long is because they were assholes and don't want to give it to you. If that's what you're feeling. But it's too long a time now. And you're going to go and then you have to almost change Damian's progression to get that again. And you're going to have to change some things in and out and whatnot. But in the meantime, you don't need an issue that is basically set, hey, because not one person who wants John to be DH is going to come out of this issue and say, oh, my God, they're right. No, what they're saying is, number one, it's Sina Grace.
How dare you?
Sina Grace is terrible, an awful writer. I don't care even saying that, awful. So you get that. And it's not even somebody that you would go with the idea of when I think of John Kent, I think of Sina Grace. Now, if Bendis came back, like, there's nobody because it's Tom Taylor at a point, whatever.
I don't know. At this point, you have Tom Taylor and Nicole Maines, I think, are the only people who really like John Kent anymore.
That was one of the things I was going to say. What they need in that JSA is Dreamer to come and get these assholes out of them dreams. But you have some Dream Warrior shit. But even then, you're saying if you wanted Tom Taylor... He's big, but people are against it. But Nicole Maines doesn't sell shit, Eric.
Agreed.
That's
the
thing.
Is, we have Tom Taylor who writes John Kent along with Nicole Maines, who are always going to pair him up with Jay Nakamura and Dreamer because it's the trio that she likes to go with. But we're even going to have it next week or whatever week it is with the Secret Six.
That shit, I just want to say, that Dreamer shit combined with John made no fucking sense. It was so forced in.
I'm saying I don't mind John and Dreamer's friendship, or even if it's going to go someplace else. Don't mind it at all.
She ended up in the Fortress of Solitude for like 10 minutes and now they're best friends. I don't get it. But that's the thing, too. Nicole Maines is not going to write the issue where he gets DH. It's not happening,
I'm just saying, though,
right?
even Tom Taylor, though, because the last thing we had with Tom Taylor was that John Kent Superman story where the idea we're going to finally get closure on Ultraman, and it just turned into John Kent with fucking lightning blue powers, which we still haven't done anything with, taking on Injustice Superman instead. I'm like,
and how did you defeat him? He hugged him.
with love.
He hugged him. You have Tom Taylor. John can't punch somebody. Like, everything they do ends up like, what people want, like, I don't understand in my mind the idea that people want a DH John. It doesn't feel hateful in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, there were people when you had Poison Ivy, she's a hero. And these people ended up like, there was a fight and it seemed like hate going back. This just people think that they missed out on stories.
You have situations where people want John DH, which is fine. I can see that because I feel like they were ripped off from a lot of years of good, like, young John stuff because they really enjoyed the character. But then you also have people who want him DH because he is bisexual.
That's different. And that's, I was going to say, and I knew where you were going to go with that.
And for some reason, they think, like, you DH him, he ain't going to be the case no more.
The thing about it, though, is, like, I'm going with the idea of John being DH'd. They ended up later adding the people who were already upset because people loved John and that's the thing. We're getting
You're
to
such
see
a cute
something.
little kid. Love the little costume.
What it is, like, everybody wants to keep telling the same stories, right? You want to have, everybody's their Batman. He's waxing poetic, the pearls and the thing, whatever. You get in a John and a Damian
Yes, Father.
kind of.
I shall be a bat.
And what you get with John, though, is a way and a different way to give us a new Superman type origin, see how it does that we're not getting now because Superman's an adult and things like that.
Yeah.
We already have that. So when you end up having the Superboy, we wanted to see. And Ben, the funniest thing, one of the most shade throwing shit I've ever seen in comics. It's hilarious. I mean, not many people realize. Bendis ended up arguing with people. He said, why would you want John Kent as a kid? Who wants to watch him going to school, doing homework, and playing video games? That was his quote. Not verbatim,
that's all
but
you would
the quote.
expect he would do? That's it?
That's what. But then if you go and look, after that quote,
he lives in a world of superheroes.
Remember the Super Sons, the digital first deal that ended up? I forget. It was the last kind of one they did. That fucking issue started with Tomasi writing, and it was John sitting there saying, I have homework to do. I'm going to be going to school playing video games. And it was basically like, fuck you, Bendis. This is what people wanted, and they will love it. It was the best. It was so good. If you go back, you have to see it. It's
we
so
talk about
funny.
those issues where I do love a cool down issue after something big where you just have a mundane life of whatever character you might be reading. For some reason, my mind always goes to like Uncanny X-Men 337, I think it was, after they just got done the Onslaught thing. Everybody is just hanging out in the mansion having breakfast, and for some reason, I just really love that aspect. It's always stuck with me, and I'm okay with having the mundane life, but I'm also saying you can have other things as well.
Okay, well, that was his play. Like, that was why he was. But that's the thing. What you want, and why I usually do end up eventually going to younger heroes. The idea where they still have the hope. They still end up having, like, they're not jaded. They're not miserable. And then you turn it on its ear with the Damian, but those two working together is great. But I do like younger characters because they are learning. And when we ended up having the Lois and Clark, the Dan Jurgens book out of Convergence when John was born, and you end up going and having him on the farm, and he's learning things, and he accidentally
before he got his powers until the end.
He kills his cat. But
that was later on until when we actually got the new Superman series that Tomasi did. That's still the sort of
thing. I think it was in that. I thought it was, but the idea,
when he killed Goldie was issue number 2 of Superman.
When you
Tomasi's
have these
run.
things, even then, like, you like to see the struggle of it, and you don't, like you said, you're not just going to get homework video games in school, but that's kind of a cool thing as well. The idea, again, where John has to go to school, but they want Damian to go, and Damian's pissed. Like, you have some fun with it. And a lot of the things, again, if you do talk about DH John, you can't help it. You have to add Damian in with it because of the Super Son stuff, but there's more to it than that. Also, the idea of John as a kid. Yeah, I was going to mention, like, the idea of like a love triangle, and Bat Zorro. What was that? What was the Rob Zorro? Like,
Rob Zorro, the Swab Bizarro.
Some of the things were so cool, but Kathy was great. The idea of
alien
all this
child
thing going, and
who was actually an adult,
and then also, again, the things that you're missing out on aren't all John either. Because what do you do when you're a Superman and a Lois Lane? How do you raise a kid when you're always busy with your things and things that we saw?
Well, you
Lois
adopt
drinks.
Two Fallujah freaking children that you never have show up again.
And yeah, they just disappeared, but they weren't quite. And so you end up at the real problem. And again, this is, we're probably going to talk a lot about this whole deal, but what I want to tell people, I'd
rather talk about this in the book.
The real shame of it, and why I think this book is garbage, is the idea that what we didn't deal. It's not just what we didn't get, but what we also didn't get with John being aged, because to make this a hard-hitting deal, you had to deal with some things. DC. It is. And the idea when John comes back from being tortured over and over, years and years and years, 7 years, he comes back and not one thing. He comes back, he's fine. Not one person concerned of the idea that this is a little kid in an adult body.
John Kent has been raised pretty much in seclusion for the most part in a volcano by a madman feeding him fucking pigs.
Who looks like his father.
Who, when he does get back, the idea is the first thing we do. It's like, okay, Daddy, buy me a Jeep. My name's Finn Connors. I'm going directly to college, even though I have a 4th grade intellect or a fucking education.
They wanted to. You end up having something done, and you want to wipe away anything of how it happened. It wasn't the idea that he lived in an alternate universe.
I am completely and ultimately freaking fine with the trauma that happened to me. There's actually nothing wrong with me. I am emotionally balanced always. Nothing affects me at all. Let's move forward.
And so, what did we get since then? We get nonsense of, I was actually just waiting for Nightwing to save me. What is he getting on a rocket? Nobody knew you were gone anyway. And the idea when you came back, it was set up perfectly for him to just go completely apeshit and be a villain. But they didn't. In the minute, and I hate to say it, I'm not being hateful, but the minute they made him bisexual, they couldn't do any of that because they'd be afraid that if you said there was any trauma, that's what caused this, that, and that. So they ran scared and just said he's fine. And so when you do this
there was
issue,
so much story just left on the table just to make him aged up.
We waited so long for that story of him actually showing that he has a brave face on, but he really is upset. He really didn't adjust. He's really upset. Even in this issue, for the crappy Sina Grace, the idea that John knows how badly, and you don't even get really Lois and Clark, how upset they were. If I ended up not having my sons not be there when they grew up.
Wait, your sons?
I'd be so happy. But that's me. I'm not Superman. But no, the idea of, I sit here now and I realize, and this is a call out to everybody who's a younger father or whatever, you listen to Cats in the Cradle and you may laugh when you're 28. When you hit 40, 50, you realize it's true and you get upset because you wish the idea, oh, that was when he had, everything I did was, it's great. But I'm sad that I missed. But there's this father who missed out on it. And John says in this issue.
But not even his father who missed out. Superman.
Yeah, Superman. And also being tortured by a guy who was his doppelganger. And like all these things are but he says, I'm not going to go see my father. Something that would be Clark would.
I'm too embarrassed.
Clark's Superman. He would say, listen, I would never want this on you. But boy, this is nice. Even if he went and had a catch, something they never got to do. And he says, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to go see my father. And then in the meantime, Lois, which I didn't even realize she's like, den mother deal. Like there's no personal moments. There's nothing of the idea of Damian. You want to make it great for me? The idea that John goes to Damian and Damian starts crying. Like the idea, and people would say, that's not Damian. No, it's not, because nothing like this has ever happened. The idea that he realized, and I think that in Damian's deal too, John probably signifies, a nicer time, a time where he could goof around, and now it's so heavy. I think Damian would just at least hug him and say, I know this isn't going to be permanent, but kind of missed you like this, but we've all grown up. When you go back,
he doesn't have time for John at all.
No, he is annoyed with it. That's wrong. That's not right. And the idea of time has gone on and passed on, but that might be true. But Damian, this is his buddy. This is his best friend. And at a point, he was ripped from him. He ended up where, in Damian's mind, John left one day, came back the next day, and was older than him. And there's a lot of things that would go through Damian's mind with all that shit, and we got nothing. So this would have been the issue. This issue should have just been, I'm going to go see the people that I think were affected the most by my aging. Goes to see Lucy Lane and says, bitch, didn't you realize that I aged this like you? But even that, like...
You didn't say anything at Grandpa's funeral.
And I'm saying even that and Lois and the idea that, they missed out on their kids, and I almost have to forget about the twins, but those things going on.
Everybody has, don't worry.
Yeah, it seems DC has, but the idea that you're going to deal more with like, hey there, this is fun stuff, and we're doing this, and hey, there's Jay Nakamura, and that's fine. At the end, you can go to Jay. That's a thing people might not like, but that's a thing. Go to Jay and says, I'm worried that like what's going to happen here or whatever, and then he changes. Maybe true love changes, whatever it would be. But the idea, like, you don't go to your dad who missed out on all that, missed out on everything of you growing up. And it's like the idea of having one day, hey, this is, it's a wonderful day. And they could do, why is it that in this one day of being DH, he's like just going around doing fucking bullshit?
Even the idea of the stuff we do, because it's like, okay, John was DH because a Mr. Dinosaur, as we're calling him, it was all fiddlesticks with a little djinn in a cage, let this djinn loose, who opened a portal. Billy said Shazam, and it went to hit a magic mirror that then went through the portal the djinn opened and happened to hit I want to call him Superboy, but John Kent, who was flying by Philadelphia, and de-aged him. And now, once we take care of this djinn for the time being, we decide, hey, you're a little kid. We don't know how to fix you. We're going to figure it out. But also, it'd be great to give you one more day of being a kid because you had that robbed from you. It seems like Mary Marvel knows all the info of what happened with John Kent.
She knows more than any editor.
She's a gossip queen over here.
But even that, she's like, oh my God, like, I didn't spend half my life being tortured in a volcano, but I get your point. I'm like, you are actually making almost a joke of the idea of torture in a volcano. And just before you go on, the thing about there's a Jin, I'm like, okay, I get it. This would be something, and by the end, I think it would be good with Jay Nakamura as well. The idea that he gets a wish, and he wished to have this day of being a kid again, and then Jay would think, oh my God, like he wants to, like he hates his life now and whatever. And it's like, no, I missed out on this. I want to go and hang out with my mom and dad. I want to go see this and whatever.
Well, yeah, because the thing is, what we have the idea with Mary Marvel and the Captain here is that we're going to get, you have this one day here, or whatever day you're going to have, but you're a kid again. This is the greatest thing that could ever happen because you didn't get to have this child. You're fucking Michael Jackson over here.
That's what it is. It's Michael Jackson. I thought he was going to Neverland Ranch.
And we essentially do, because the thing is, the idea is, since you are a child, we're going to go to a carnival, we're going to go play arcade games, and we're going to go to the driving range and or just play golf, and we're going to have a sleepover. And the thing is, at most, John Kent is 18 years old.
But that's what I was just going to say.
You can do all these things.
Like, this is the thing. This isn't the idea that it's a guy who has Alzheimer's and is in a wheelchair at 80. Oh, I just wish I could have skied. I've never skied in my life. Maybe that. But he's 18.
This is all things you could still do.
Shit that, and I don't know about you, but I've heard maybe that 18-year-olds still might play video games. And they might golf, and they might go to the carnival, and things like that. So,
get ice cream as an adult? Not on my watch.
Oh my God! What do you call this, butter brickle? Caitlin Snow. God damn it! She's so bad at everything.
She's in the background.
She's in the background. Like even he gets it. But then a sleepover. I don't know if you've realized recently, but
I'm an adult. I have a boyfriend. We have sleepovers all the time.
And even so, the super family is quite a large budget. I've seen them hanging out. This is nothing that he wouldn't have, that he missed out on. He could still do.
No. Here he doesn't have his own room.
What he missed out on is the idea. And one of the things, and it's almost like played out like, I miss my mom kissing my forehead. Like,
okay.
But don't just do that as a just weird thing. Go more.
Because the idea, I missed my mom kissing me on the forehead, which I could do right now, but I don't want to be embarrassed. I'm going to have Rosa Vasquez kiss me on the forehead.
Yeah, and even with that, it was like weird because then that, and I mean, what is the beginning of this? Let's just get to the full deal.
Fiddlesticks.
You get at the beginning, and there's a lady walking down, and like, Rosa Vasquez? Hey, girl, haven't seen you in a while. What's up? Oh, man, I ended up getting my husband the... What the fuck are we doing? What is this?
We're talking about situations that happen like to ordinary people that are out of the ordinary that you didn't expect to happen. We're relating this idea that Vasquez Rosa runs into somebody that she hasn't seen from high school has the same thing as John being de-aged by a Shazam lightning bolt because of a djinn and a magic mirror.
A woman divorcing her husband and living with her parents.
And moving back to Philly, yeah.
That's not quite the scope
Just the
of
same.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. Exactly the same.
The worst is they seem very happy to see each other. When you go to Damien, he's like, what the fuck? He's all this stuff. You can even have points where you ended up having the Legion of Superheroes come in. You could have done so much. But the big thing to me is, especially playing off the idea where John then says, I was in really to push the idea that being 7 years tortured in a volcano did nothing bad. This was a vacation. He's like, at least it wasn't cold. That was another thing in that Captain Atom bullshit. Yeah. When he's like, I haven't felt cold in a while. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to feel cold. Like what he was discussing, that sounds awesome. Like everything's warm and shit.
You don't have a titanium body.
Yeah, and if I'd love it if I did, because then I'm hard as titanium. I was going to say hard as rock. But in that, the idea where John saying, oh man, well, it was nothing to be in a volcano all that time because you guys are orphans, right? That's another play of the idea of, it's almost like a reverse deal where he had parents that missed out on things. This would be the idea of, this is exactly what it is. I got kidnapped as a 10-year-old, and then they found me at 18. I come back, and what I want to do is play video games and golf before even seeing my parents or doing anything. And that's the one. It's bullshit. It's completely bullshit. With the idea, because it's Sina Grace.
It is a wasted issue.
What this is in the beginning and middle is the idea of Sina Grace, who has nothing to do with this character and is a bullshit writer and usually is Marvel bullshit anyway. But the idea that they're going to be the caretaker to come and say, hey, everybody, you want John D.H.? Well, you're wrong. You should get this. This is awful. And it's in a Shazam book, which makes it even worse than the Shazam run.
Agreed.
Terrible. So we go and just the idea that at the end, you do leave it ambiguous of the idea that John anytime might be able to say Shazam to DH, but you'll never get that. So you're just, it's giving people any sort, it's bullshit. And so when he does this, he gets hit by a djinn that they think they killed, and they're fine with that too.
But the Jin is still alive, and we're able to use the Jin again to try to do something. It doesn't end up working, but Jay Nakamura, once we finally do get to his ass, because since his mother died, he's going through a lot of trauma counseling. John, he don't need none of that trauma counseling shit, but Jay needs all of it. But Jay says, hey, with all the things that you've been doing, with Mr. Dinosaur, whatever the fuck that is over there, have you tried saying Shazam? And John does. And even though previously when he was struck down and became a child, his clothes were too big on him, had to have Talkie Tony alter his clothes for him to become, child size. When he says Shazam, his clothes then grow with him. And I'm like, shouldn't he have ripped through the clothing?
Because they're ridiculous.
Again, this is nothing to really harp on. This is nothing of the story that matters.
This is a horrible story with a horrible intention, done horribly. The idea that what you're doing here, you don't even have the idea of Shazam. Oh no, that is bullshit. That is bullshit. And just that going and you end up where...
And on top of that, we continue the trend of this book where Captain Marvel and Billy Batson are two separate people, and I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, Damian, I like too where Damian's counting the years on his fingers. 2 years. Like 1, 2. And he says, for starters, if you're anything like your former self, which he is, you skipped over the necessary straightforward methods, right? Like he's annoyed that he hasn't figured out a way to age himself again. Instead of being like, oh my God, you're here. Like, what's going on? Because, oh my God, I think this would be one of those moments again that would be, it's not that I would say Damian's happy, sad, or whatever. I think he'd be overtaken with emotions. I just think that seeing this would throw up a lot of things, especially if Sina Grace knew the idea that Damian is a little progressed. He is a little more softer side of things. He did end up in his Batman and Robin book where he thought a girl had died and he was getting all that, and he's very sensitive about it. I think this would be something that he'd be overtaken with emotions. And you could play the idea, if you want to go full out Damian of, hey, I don't have time for you, whatever. And then he just turns and you see that one tear. I love you, John. But even that would be like, it just makes Damian an asshole.
It is also very odd in this issue that eventually when you figure out that the Djinn is still out there and they have to collect the Djinn back in this little magic cage they have, that the entire family gets in on it. You have Eugene, Pedro, and Darla all helping out, just doing the thing, even though you have Mary Marvel and the Captain here. But what you don't have is Freddie Freeman, which is very odd. Is it because we have John here, we can't have Freddie Freeman, CM3 or Captain Marvel Jr., whatever you want to call him?
Maybe that's the deal. He's off with that app. He's doing that shit again. And then also the thing where Damian, I'm still stuck on Damian. I think that John's also doing weird things with shadows. He's like, look at me. I'm Jesus. He has his arms like wide out. I don't know what he's doing. But he ends up where Damian says, and things are different now. Of course he does. This is just him. He still has his memories. The idea of almost saying like they don't like each other or they're still, and if you go by Tom King's deal in the future, like they're always best buds. I don't know what Sina Grace thinks doing this. It ends up being, well, I know what it is. You can't have one thing that would make you think, but yet the issue itself, if it did have a play that John could decide by the end, I made a wish to be de-aged. It was just something. And even if it was like, he has taxes to do it. He's like, I just wish I was a kid again. Didn't realize there was a genie and does that. But there's nothing at the end that he has to decide.
There's no wish involved.
No, and that's what I'm saying. There should be a wish because what you're doing now, what Sina Grace is doing is not giving you one reason why John would want to stay de-aged because it's not going to happen anyway and he's just going to go and Shazam, whatever. The tension of it would be, is he going to decide to stay this way? Like, oh my God, things, he missed out on this. And at the end, he realizes everybody grows up. I have Jay and my parents are fine with it, so I'm going to go with it. But even at the end, when he becomes John 18, maybe show him at the end going then and hanging out with Damian, like trying to make it so like you could realize from this issue that Damian has some issues. He has some issues and debate, and John goes, but nothing is, because all it is to say, John needs to be aged up and fuck all of you. And it's also, in my mind, this issue is years late. There's no reason for it. Everybody's just like, anybody who really wants John de-age, and anybody who wants him de-age already realizes they're not going to get what they want. They're not. They're upset about it and whatever. This almost feels like they're trying to dupe those people to get some hope to buy this because nobody's buying this book. And yet the Shazam people are getting, it's so bad. It just gets me angry because, again, this is, we keep saying it, but this has to be the death nail in the coffin of let's get something going with what John had to suffer through and how that affected him. It's done. It's completely done.
I'm telling you, the thing is, I hate saying the stories on here because I feel like somehow if my wishes come true that I get the right, then I won't be able to use the story because I talked about it in the podcast. But what I really need to happen at this point, the reason that John was so well adjusted when he came back is because of a shame where he tells everybody he was trapped in a volcano, tortured for all of these years. But the real truth
really wasn't.
is,
yeah,
no, he was a part of the crime syndicate. Eventually, he became Ultra Boy and worked with the crowd. He did terrible things to survive in this world and was able to grow up in this world, learn what he didn't know. So when he came back, he didn't have the freaking mind of a 10-year-old or 11-year-old boy anymore. So it would make sense. But also it's the shame that keeps him to the point where he's not going to punch people because of all the violence that he did on Earth 3.
Yeah. And I would, people would be upset about, but even so, again, some people thought it was a doppelganger. We threw that out there at one point, that John's still out there de-aged, but also maybe at the end you get kind of a clever twist. Even the clever twist would be that it was a wish, but if John's like, I don't remember, and it happened to be Jay Nakamura's wish, that he realizes that John does miss some things and he wants him to have that day, or we found out it's Damien's wish, but at the end it's just going to be John aged again and whatnot, and having, and again, it's supposed to be the goofy, no, I'm going to act like a kid, I get the pillow for it and things like that, but there's so much that was missed. You did nothing with this issue. You did nothing at all. And even the idea of, well, did you say Shazam? Of course, Jay ends up coming up with that. But really, most of them should have looked at him and said, are you a fucking moron? That doesn't even make sense. But he does it and it works. It just works because it does. And even then, the stuff with it, they say Jay trauma deal, us doing a lot of books and whatever, I kind of want to see that as well. We didn't get that. His mom was killed and he was just it seemed he was fine with it at one point, and we thought it was going to lead into him thinking John did. Everything that seems big end up not being, and then mentioned, then disappears. So this is bullshit. But what would you give it?
Overall, I think the art has some fun aspects, but I'm not a huge fan of it overall. And the story is just one of these things that feels like, what was the point except for trying to get people to read this comic for false pretenses? There's some gags in here. You might have some fun with the Shazam fillet, but it is ultimately just a gag book that does nothing for any of the characters involved, whether it's John Kent or the Shazam family at all. So a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a 1. I just go with it. Again, I can sit there and say some of the art is kind of fun. I mean, when you see John and he's in this outfit, it's big. I'm like, that's kind of funny. He's holding that girder and stuff like that, but it's in a Shazam book. You don't need it to be. It's a story that doesn't do anything, but instead kicks people in the teeth to then try to convince them. It's not convincing anybody. It's too late. All that stuff all in, and it's just
especially for the penultimate issue of Shazam. You're not getting people reading this issue and continuing the series because it's already canceled.
And I ended up seeing, and there were some people, reviews, what I like to call idiots, Eric, and they from now on, Sina Grace should be the caretaker of John. I'm like, really? That's what you get from this? Because I don't think I want that. Again, it's a shame that people aren't going to get what they want, but you got to move on and make John the character. Because right now, one of the biggest problems with John
what's up with his lightning blue powers, Jim?
Again, that what I'm going to tell you, that at least would have been something. John doesn't really have anything. You know what I mean? He's kind of like Superman, but not. But
Wait until the Secret Six.
And you end up in the Secret Six. He's in there, but he's tied with Dreamer. And that's the thing.
And Gossamer.
When you have Gossamer, freaking, then the people don't remember that is the code name for Jay. But really, when you get John, to me, it feels like more that you're getting Dreamer and Jay, and John's there. It doesn't really feel like it runs through John. It really runs through Dreamer a lot because of Nicole Main's writing it. But I don't feel like John has a thing of his own anymore. One of the things is he doesn't punch people. That's lame. And the blue power that disappeared. So what are you doing? And him being the super son, and that was his thing. And you took it away, and you never really got to tell a lot of stories with that. And if anybody sits there, and if Sina Grace tells me, well, that was bullshit, nobody wants that, then why do people still like Damien? Because that's what you're getting still. You're getting Damien growing older and progressing and doing things. That's exactly what you're getting. And you have multiple books where they're happening. And don't give me this bullshit that it couldn't happen with John. It could have and should have. So with that, though, that's it.
That's it.
I'm usually tired at this point, but now I'm angry. I'm going to go. I would yell at Sina Grace, block me, because
makes sense.
Didn't like the terminology of a hockey game. Is what I didn't like. Yeah, I get it. Dennis Camp ended up blocking me, but all I said was the guy had a picture and it looked like he hadn't showered in 5 years. And believe me, I know that.
And believe he knows, yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this he's there and he has this picture. He's at a con. he has a mask on. Anybody could do whatever they want, but it seemed like the big play was for him to like almost want to start fights. It seemed, but the idea
it worked because you got involved. For some reason.
The only thing I could see is this raggedy ass hair. I mean, it looked just like it smelled like shit. Oh yeah, I got to show you this picture. It's one of the things.
I'm good.
You know how it is with the idea. Like the first time you saw Post Malone, the first thing you thought was, "Boy, that guy's got to stink." Like he really looks stinky, and that's what he did. So I might have told him that, but he also stinks writing, so it all works out. Everything stinks with that guy. But what's your book of the week?
My book of the week is Batman Off-Road number 6.
Yeah, that's mine as well. So it was a little bit of a disappointing ending. But I think it was more about the idea of it waiting too long to get to that. But if you want to hear us talk about that, it is on the YouTubes. We have a video of me and Eric talking about 40-some minutes of that. And that is Weird Science Comics. You can find that pretty easily. But we'll talk about what we are going to talk about next week. 2 of these books will be on the, what's that called? The
Patreon Spotlight?
The Patreon Spotlight. I'm sitting here because I do have to end up, I'm going to ding this right here because the one guy who wants to have a show note there, and I was trying to get my mouse. It wasn't working. But in the meantime, these are the books we're going to talk about. Also might not have those up, mainly because me and you were talking, and I got away from it to look at reviews. So I got to set this up. Not a lot of books next week, though. So 2 of these will be on the Patreon Spotlight. One of the things, though, is Absolute Batman number 5 is coming out, an issue that me and Eric want to get back into the swing of things.
Hopefully.
We want to know what happened with the Black Mask and his money. Did Batman accept it? Is he doing something with it?
What's he going to do with that money?
Yeah, so that'll be live on YouTube next Friday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, anytime there is an Absolute book, we will be doing that. So check that out. We also end up subscribing to the channel and hitting the notifications, and then it'll let you know when things are happening. But here are the books that we'll be talking about in general. Action Comics number 1083. I'll tell you why I realized that this Action Comics superstars in this John. I forgot everything about this issue.
You don't remember General Disaster?
I kind of.
I'm sorry, I say general, major disaster. I'm an idiot.
I actually think the book's a general disaster, but yeah.
I'm telling you, I think that's why I went with it. I'm like, that's not right. That's what the book is.
And it is John Ridley, Anika Miranda on art, but you also have, it looks like Clark Kent going to talk to Atomic Skull, which is what we wanted in the beginning of the thing, but I don't know, this story. I'll read the deal. Because there's not a lot. Metropolis in the crosshairs of a villainous conspiracy. The second chapter in this tale of truth and hope. As Clark Kent digs into what drove major disaster or general disaster back to crime, he's up his game. He's gotten a couple of new medals.
Is that what that is? Major to a general?
Major to a general. That seems pretty good. Major to a general seems like a big step. He begins to uncover a greater conspiracy involving previously reformed villains. But when the noble reporter gets too close to the truth, he finds himself under attack. Remember that was the thing at the end, too, was like, you idiot, when the guy was going to shoot him, and we were all confused, right?
We need to find out who that man in the shadows is.
One person can take over the investigation, Superman. That seems like a very general disaster type of solicit that doesn't really give us much. But it is on the cover with Atomic Skull. In atomic lockdown, it says. So then we get Aquaman number 2. That's cool.
Figure out where Aquaman went.
It says, and that's Jeremy Adams, John Timms. Atlantis obliterated? After the shocking events of Aquaman 1, Arthur Curry is now a king without a home. Where is he, though? Like, this seems weird. But is hope truly lost? The answer lies in Aquaman's mysterious new water-morphing abilities and a portal into the unknown. This seems out of place here. Earth's uncanny undersea hero must train like never before to stand a chance of recovering Atlantis from its ultimate apocalypse. So it was already taken. It's weird. Or should we say apocalypse? Yeah, it says apocalypse, or should we say apocalypse?
Yeah.
That's what I called my girlfriend in college. Ride the wave, Eric. Ride the wave for the biggest, wettest adventure of the year. In the second issue of Extravaganza, brought to you, Men at Work, by the tide-turning talents of Jeremy Adams and John Timms. It's a lot of puns there. Eric, you want to add some in?
No, I'm good.
You don't want to, they already have the tide turn. They have Ride the Wave, stuff like that, right? Now all of a sudden you clam up. Finally, I did it, Eric. And I'm so proud of myself. Batman and Robin number 18 that we talked about that we really do enjoy. But, we'll see how it goes. It's Fall of the House of Wayne. It says on the cover, it's Philip Kenny Johnson, Javi Fernandez, Miguel Mendonca, and Carmine Di Giandomenico listed on art. Like, everybody's back for this one. Memento's gruesome rampage across Gotham continues. A hospital erupts in flames. A boat careens into a dock. Everything seems like these solicits are just recaps of what happened before. Fresh corpses are found in the ruins of Arkham Asylum. These are but a few of Gotham's historical atrocities, committed in disturbing copycat-like fashion by the foul creature, known only as Memento. While the dynamic duo fails to prevent these heinous acts, the very fabric of their alliance frays and rips. Can Batman withstand losing his city to violence? He has.
Oh no, a dying city.
He has up until now. I mean, he's lost the city so much, he's found it. I lost there. While losing his son to uncertainty, that's the worst. It's like he's losing Damian to the worst possible villain. Uncertainty.
Being a nurse.
Uncertainty. He wants to be Thomas Wayne, or possibly that non-half brother, Bill.
Will.
That's for sure. He's Bill. That guy looked more like a Bill than a William. I'm telling you.
Well, he didn't go by William either. He went by Will.
No, they actually said, though, that when they spelled out his name was like, hey, there's William. And then I think somebody
when
did
Bruce
say
said William, and he's like, Will.
Yeah, fuck that. That guy doesn't look like a Will. And I think that was
James.
I think that was only to kind of like wink at the whole deal of him being a brother and a Will or something. I don't know. I go Bill, and fuck that guy. That guy was shaming Bruce Wayne. What the fuck's he? What the fuck's he done? Guy looked like a wreck. Yeah. Also, I didn't even mention the guy. Is he a surgeon? Was he a nurse? Whatever he was, whatever he was. Did they really spell it out? Because I don't know if they did. Fucking shave, dude. You're a fucking doctor. It looks like you're there in some sort of surgery and shit. The guy was unshaven. Fucking ridiculous. Fuck that guy.
It's a nurse at a free clinic.
Again, shave if you're going to be around bodies and shit like that. I'm telling you, I didn't like it. And it looked like it was just stubble. It wasn't like he grew a beard or anything. It was just fucking nonsense.
He's trying.
No, he's failing. That's what he's doing. He's also nothing, so it doesn't matter. We'll never see him again. Poor Bill. But yeah, Batman and Robin. There it is. There's bodies and Memento. And maybe Mentos. I don't know. That'd be pretty cool. But we have not a lot of other books. We have Dark Patterns, #3, something that me and my man Tom will be talking about. And everybody loves the book. Me and Tom, not quite so. I think that book has a lot of holes. So does Tom. I'm speaking for Tom as well, Eric, that we're just kind of frustrated with it, that the idea that Batman doesn't feel right. He's doing things in the art, to me, by Hayden Sherman, who does the Absolute Wonder Woman. It's not good. It's good at points, but you have a villain that really needs some detail and doesn't come out. But you got Some Wounds Never Heal. Case 1. We Are Wounded, Part 3. Batman is in the dark now amid the accumulated devastation and suffering at the root of Wound Man and his grotesque reign of terror. I always want to say Wounded Man, including in the song I did. But can the Dark Knight bring it to an end before the twisted killer claims another life? Don't miss the end of We Are Wounded. And yeah, if you aren't aware, this book is, I believe, a 12-issue maxi, but every 3 issues it'll change the story. So we're going to end up doing that. But I think there's so much left open for this whole Wound Man deal. I think, and we talk about it, the idea 2-issue stories are the worst because nothing ever gets resolved. But why not just tell a full story? It doesn't feel very full to me. But we'll be talking about that, me and Tom. But then we have more things. Black Lightning #4.
All right.
Another book that nobody reads, but it's Brandon Thomas and Fico Ocio. I don't know what you would read if we didn't get copies and things like that. I don't know that you'd even read comics. I know I wouldn't. Thunder in Quarantine.
I know you wouldn't, but I know I would.
I don't think you'd read new stuff. I think you would just read the old stuff on the app. I don't think you would seek out where to get it and things. I just don't know.
But I know where to get it.
Yeah, but I just don't think you would. I don't think that it would be something. But if you would, that's all to you. You're wasting your time. Thunder in Quarantine. So now, actually, like, who's this book going to be about? This one, I mean, is it going to be about Thunder? Is it going to be, or is it that crazy ass punch that made no sense? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are forced to quarantine Thunder aboard the Watchtower, which puts the Trinity at odds with Black Lightning. Even though it does make sense, but they did it in a weird way. Jefferson Pierce's metahuman outreach initiative allowed him to make a difference at a global scale. You know, saving that one guy. But is he willing to throw it all away to free his daughter?
Yes.
We'll see. Brandon Thomas sucks. He's not a good writer. That's free. That's free of charge. Commentary. DC versus Vampires: World War V Darkness and Light #1. it says, I don't know, the way that they spell this out on the roundup is weird, but it's Matthew Rosenberg and Nicola Mazisha. This is the side books that we're going to get because, you need a break from that hard-hitting fucking nonsense that we ended up. Aren't we getting another thing like that? Aren't we taking 2 months off?
I'm not sure. I think it's just one.
Yeah, I thought it said it's like back in like April or something, but I don't know. 2 sides of the same story shown here in one incredible issue. So it might be all those artists. I think that Daniel Bayliss is as well. Wonder Woman, Child of Themyscira turned vampire, and Alfred Butler of the Waynes turned Green Lantern. Their paths couldn't be any different. Are we having a flip book here? But for each, a chance encounter will force them to re-examine what it means to survive in the world ruled by darkness. Showcasing 2 sides of the same story, the double feature special issue illustrates how anger and vengeance can break you or fuel you, how it can be ruin or salvation. Will we be in New Hope?
Probably. For some reason, the vast wasteland of New Hope.
The idea that, I guess some people might be liking it, but I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't see anybody hyped. And when we read it, it's like a book that you're just not getting anything. And yet we're getting a side story as a separate one shot that's $6. That takes some balls, Eric, some balls indeed. I don't know how that will sell, but there you go. They threw it out there. And we get Green Lantern Corps #1. So basically what I'm going to tell you, if you want to hear Green Lantern Corps and Aquaman, even though I'm yelling about the DC versus vampires, and that is a gem for the badasses to put on the deal, but I do.
It might have been always on there, I think.
It might have been. And Green Lantern Corps #1 is definitely on there. Now, there is a thing that I heard and was told and whatnot, and the idea, it's Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton. If you don't know, Morgan Hampton ended up writing the Cyborg book. Some people, back up. There's no backup. It does seem as if this is a Morgan Hampton book with Jeremy Adams just giving some story tidbits of what they're doing in the Green Lantern book. It worries me, but we'll see. We'll see, because maybe it'll be pretty cool. The cast of characters is great, so we'll see what's going on there. Fernando Passarin on art, which is always good too. The Green Lantern Corps returns with a brand new ongoing series. The Corps is back, and just in time for the deadly new Fractured Spectrum saga to kick into full gear. Join the newly formed Green Lantern Corps as they head out into the galaxy in order to stop Sorrow and his master from creating a power battery. John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Jessica Cruz, Guy Gardner listed that far down. Yeah, Kyle Rayner. Yeah, did you think I said
with Hal?
No, don't worry about that, Eric.
But he's with Hal with Superboy and Odyssey.
Okay, Eric's already down to a 5 out of 10. Now it says it's John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Jessica Cruz, Guy Gardner, Joe Mullen, and all your favorite Lanterns. There's Kelly's on there, Teen Lantern there with that gauntlet that makes no goddamn sense. But yeah, right there on the cover, there's Kyle. Wasn't misprint. He's there. Guy's like right in front, ready to kick ass, and he's listed that low. He's listed 4th. He should be 2nd. John, and when they do have a core book, I always do, even if it's just the New 52 deal, I do think of John and Guy together. He should have been 2nd. Don't give me this Kyle Rayner bullshit. Get him out of there.
Maybe he should have been 1st.
Get him out of there. Maybe. Joe Mullen. Again, it just as an aside. And hopefully when we were talking about the Shazam and John and the de-aging, people get the idea. We're not into just not liking something because of a hateful thing. We will give things a chance. If it sucks, we'll say it, whatever. But please, I hope there's people who, you have this team, right? And I see the cover. There's Guy on the front. Kyle's right behind. You have Jessica, Simon, John. Please, nobody say, I'm not reading that because that fucking Joe Mullen. Like, she's all there. And the thing is, she's just a character, and the book can be good. Again, I know there's people who already said that to me of like, what? Teen Lantern bullshit? Like, don't do that. Just give things a chance. Give things a chance and then yell about them like, man. But at least you know, if you don't like something, it's fine, but give it a deal. And all your favorite Lanterns there, all of them. They say that. They list everybody on the cover.
I said they are my favorite Lanterns.
They list everyone but Teen Lantern Kelly. Like, that's the thing, and all the rest. It is like Marianne and the Professor and the rest. Yeah, it's like, really? Like, there she is in the back, right front and center. And she was the prime deal. I mean, they did something to her to get all that shit going on with the Fractured Spectrum. I don't get it, but because she ended up freaking hacking into shit and doing. It's all her fault. All brought to you by the great Galactic Creative Team of Jeremy Adams, Morgan Hampton, and Fernando Passarin. And if you want to just even go by the deal. It is different here, but actually a thing that I saw, it did in the credits list Morgan Hampton first, but that might be whatever. Just throwing it out there. But yeah, I don't trust Morgan Hampton. I hope that this is a surprise because I thought that Cyborg book was a wreck. So
I don't think a lot of it was great, but they had a really good premise.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the premise just ended up being the idea. And I remember that, though. At the beginning, you had 7 things that you were like, this could be, none of them happened. It just ended up that his dad was dead. And they went forward with it. So, I mean, not really dealing much else with it. But I'm telling you, that whole AI shit and stuff, it all fell apart.
Digital avatar?
Yeah,
keeping your conscience going?
Yeah, it all fell apart in that. And then, the idea of killing the avatar, like, that was made us yell and scream at each other for a while, which is probably kind of fun. But that is it. That is it for the show. Now I'm tired, Eric, but I do think that'll be Green Lantern Corps and possibly that DC versus Vampires deal. But again,
I'm saying DC versus Vampires and Black Lightning.
Yeah, I don't think that. There's no way that a big number one like a Green Lantern Corps escapes their grips with that. So we'll see. But we'll also be talking about the Absolute Batman on YouTube again, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. So check that out. But we're at the end. Eric, what do we say at the end of the podcast?
Everybody have a great week. Keep it weird. And we'll see you in 7.
See you in 7.
Every other show sucks. That's why you're listening to us. Every other show sucks. We're the only one that isn't us. So thank you for being smart. From the bottom of our heart. Being smart, 'cause everything that us just tastes like a fart. They stink like a fart. Tastes like a fart, like a fart. They stink like a fart. Let's go! 2, 3, 4, 5. Eric has read comics. Most of his life. 9, 8, 7, 6. Jim can really act like a shut your mouth. Every other show